Think we got it, folks. Hey, Blue Rockers, how are you? Welcome to Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. This is a Far Out Thursday, or Signature Thursday, if you want to call it that. This is the night that Blue Rock Talk started on, Thursdays. And so this is the one that we do the aliens and the remote viewing and the UFOs and all the fun stuff like that. Where on Friday, it's Bigfoot Friday. And by the way, tomorrow night we're going to have Squatch Man on. That's 10 p.m. Eastern, all across the board, 10 p.m. Eastern here on Blue Rock Talk. Squatch Man has been given this great lifetime offer, once in a lifetime offer, his dream job, money and all, but he's not sure if he's going to take it or not. So he's going to throw it at you guys and see what you think. I think there's going to be some conversation about it. So you'll learn more about that tomorrow on Bigfoot Friday. You don't want to miss that one. Then coming up on Sunday, Easter, right? So we have Stan Larimer, the godfather of BitShares, with his Stan's Bible lecture that happens Sunday at 1 o'clock on selected Sundays. Well, guess what? He is going to be here for Easter, and he's going to give an Easter service. So that's at 1 p.m. Eastern, where we'll be live, and you can ask him questions. He's kind of just clearing out the rest of his day, at least for a couple hours there at 1 o'clock. That's a big deal for him to do that. That's a very big deal because that's a big day, but that's why he wants to be able to talk to you. That's really cool. So Crypto Connie's on Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, and throughout the week as well. Anytime there's breaking news with either crypto or anything else, we'll be there for you. And possibly in the future, Wasted Wednesdays, talking about the cannabis industry and also liquor and different things like that, getting behind the seriousness of it. And I don't know, who knows what's going to come from it, but I have a lot of people sending me a lot of information, so I think that might be a pretty successful night too. So if you're new to Blue Rock Talk, I hope that you hit that like button. I hope that you leave a comment. I hope that you subscribe, and I hope you enjoy it. It's Earth's most interesting conversations, Blue Rock Talk, and that involves people, places, and things out there. So I think you'll enjoy the show if you're new. If you are new, you are now called a Blue Rocker. That is someone in the know. That's a fan of Blue Rock Talk. And we have that's our little sign. It's a backwards Spock and to the left, kind of thing. Little yo. It's just fun. It's no gangster. It doesn't mean anything. Somebody said that that's an actual Jewish hand signal for something. It's for Blue Rockers. That's what it is for here. There's nothing else behind it. So anyway, let's see. I wanted to update you on the hawk. If you watched recently, there was a hawk that was hurt, and we captured it the other day. The Raptor Rehabilitation Center of Kentucky. Lauren came out as soon as I called, and we captured it, and I've got it on tape, so you can watch one of the previous videos, and you can see us doing that. We have named the hawk Rock. So you got Blue Rock Talk and the hawk, and someone said, let's name it Rock, spelled R-A-W-K. And I think that's great. So Rock has been x-rayed and checked out, and no broken bones or wings, nothing like that. They just say it's kind of sprained left leg and left wing. They believe it got hit by a car. A big hawk, even though it's, she said, probably about a year old. So she still said it was a young one. Big, big thing. So check out the video to see it. However, what they're going to do now is going to give it different pills, inflammation pills, and different things that they need to give it, take care of it. A great, great group of people, volunteers. I hope you remember that in the areas around you, if there's ever a sick animal or a hurt animal where you are. And in about 3 or 4 days, we're going to release Rock back into the wild right here. Whenever there's an injured animal and you take it in, you need to bring it back when it's healed to the place where you found it, because that's its home, right? That's its little home area. So that's going to be fun. When I do that, I'm hoping I can do it live. I'm not sure that the Wi-Fi is going to make it over there. So I'll at least tape it. I think that'll be really neat. So I appreciate those of you that are interested in that as well. And I do have the information in that video, so if you want to donate for Little Rock, that's fine. That's fine. That'll be fun. So last Saturday night, I was on Coast to Coast, and my original guest, my very first guest, was Samantha Ellen Ritchie. You've seen her here before on Blue Rock Talk, and she talked about little people. All right, exciting. Got lots of emails on that. Apparently, there's little people all over the world, and they all have different names, but they all are very positive around the world. The Philippines have them. It's a big deal with them. I can't remember the name, like Dweebs or something like that. But apparently they sing and they dance and they're very lively and positive. And that kind of actually seems about right with the pictures that Samantha had. Now, some of you guys were asking if that's a man and saying horrible things about, oh, Connie, she's an idiot, keeps calling Samantha she, it's a he. She's transgender. Okay? So, at one point, she's going to be here on Blue Rock Talk, and we're going to talk about that. So then you can give her the respect she deserves and stop saying those horrible things. It is what it is, though. It's understandable. It's okay. Not a problem. Not a problem. Let's see. Oh, then we had a guest named Jerry Wills. And Jerry was on after her. He was our featured guest. And Jerry was, at least as a baby, the first place he was on this planet was about an hour and a half from me, where I am right now. And I'm going to let him tell that story. But we had an incredible response. He kind of took the show on his own with the tone of it, because he can't help it. He's got this incredible radio voice. Anyway, let's introduce him. I think he's got the sound of Johnny Cash, and he's got incredible stories. We never even got to I think we were supposed to talk about ancient stuff. I think that's what it said on Coast to Coast. But we were just getting started, and it was time to go. So here he is on Blue Rock Talk, and we have all night to talk about whatever he'd like to talk about. And also, you guys can ask your questions. So let's bring on Jerry. This is Jerry Wills. Welcome to Blue Rock Talk.
Hello,
Jerry.
Connie. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I got so much email about you, and it was, they said classic coast. So they loved the show. They loved what you were talking about. And I said, well, now you guys can see what he looks like and not just hear the picture that he paints.
Yeah, and I think that's, to be able to make a visual on someone, you can kind of get an idea, perhaps a little bit better than they are.
Well, how about you? What was your response?
Well, I have received, I don't know if it's hundreds or thousands of emails. And the reason I don't know is because there are so many of them. I think we just scratched the surface. My wife, Kathy, is going through every one of them, answering the ones that she can. And then that leaves quite a volume for me to go through as well. And since then, they've just been coming in gangbusters. And I've got the same responses which you mentioned, classic coast to coast. I had no idea that it was going to be received, that well. And I really appreciate, everything that the folks have said. There wasn't anything in there at all that was discouraging or not a happy kind of communication.
That's good.
So, I'm very happy with a good time, and I really enjoyed being on with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, that was a good time. I mean, I knew that we had a lot to talk about because I know you have so many adventures and so many stories. And so at the beginning, I thought, okay, well, definitely we'll talk about how you were born because that's very unique. And then from there, you took me to areas, of course, I didn't know, and that's fine. That's what I like. A lot of people, they want to know everything about that other person and then go do a conversation or an interview with them. I like to have a conversation, and I like new things to pop up that I have no idea about, so we can go down another rabbit hole. And you did it. It was great. I love the Palladian guy that, has this neat little device like a lighter, and all of a sudden he uses it and he turns into a little blue ball and takes off and travels. So I think that's cool. So for those people that have missed Coast that night, and they're not a Coast insider, so they'll totally miss it, or they don't see it bootleg somewhere on YouTube, which you can do that, by the way, and hopefully... hopefully, I don't know. I'm on Coast to Coast. You're not supposed to have those. They get more views than I do here. That's not cool. But let's start at the beginning, if that's okay, and we can go wherever you want with this. We'll take questions, right? That's cool with you?
Sure.
We got you for the evening. Go ahead and smoke if you want. That's fine. So he was going to smoke everybody and take a break, and I was like, no, do it there, because that's kind of cool. It's kind of got that late night look, right? So it's your place. Go for it. It's fine.
Yeah, thank you.
You're in the smoking section of Blue Rock Talk. It's all right.
Fantastic.
So again, I'm actually outside of Louisville, and not too far away, you were put into a house. So let's start with that.
Of course, I was a baby. Any clear recollections of this, and this is information that I had been given, later in life. But what I was told is that when I arrived to this world, I was left at a farmhouse, an abandoned farmhouse, and I was supposed to have been picked up by some group within the military out of Fort Knox. Well, and apparently I was taken to Fort Knox hospital, and I had been left in there for over 12 hours in freezing weather. So consequently, I had frostbite over most of my body. I remained there at the hospital until I was handed off to some fellow in the Army, and I don't know what he did. I've tried to find out. But he and his wife could not have children. And I found out later the reason why is because she had radium poisoning. Back when she was a child, radium was used as a novelty item. Radium is radioactive, and the fun thing that they did as kids was to take the radium and put it on their teeth and then get in the dark and smile, and they're glowing. Well, it destroyed her reproductive system, and because of that, she couldn't have children.
Oh, that's terrible. I mean, we used to have fun with that, like with the black light, as kids, with everything glowing. Oh, that's horrible to hear. However, then you got to come along that way, though.
Yeah, so I came along. I was handed off to them, and I became their son. Lived in Kentucky for another year and a half, roughly, and then they moved to Denver, Colorado. And in Denver, he got a job working for the government. And that's where I lived until I was 7. And at 7 years old, he died, and my mother moved back to Kentucky. And things took a turn for less fortunate living circumstances. I grew up in a chicken coop and on top of a hill outside of Elizabethtown. And that's where I grew up, back in the hills of Kentucky.
You know what that sounds like? It sounds like an old country tune.
I know.
I think you should make one. You sing, right?
Well, I used to, but not much anymore.
Dude, a voice like that, come on. Come on.
I'm I'm not much of a rocker any longer. Maybe if I did some country tunes, it would work out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I've already got a question. Usually I like to wait till the end, but I think this one is an important one because I got this a lot, and you mentioned it again. When were you found? What year? Do you have an idea?
No, I don't. See, here's the thing that's really strange about all of this. I mean, if that isn't strange enough, what I've already told you, which I'm sure it is. The strange thing is that the birth certificate that I have is really not filled out. I mean, I'm sure folks know what a birth certificate looks like. It has mother's name, father's name, occupation, and all kinds of information on there. My birth certificate has mother's name, and that's it. There's a doctor's signature, but there's nothing else on this birth certificate. And it is in the book that Rod Haberer wrote about me. It's called Healer, the Jerry Wills story, and there's a page in there that has a copy of this birth certificate. Everyone that sees it thinks there's something truly wrong with this, because how could there be a birth certificate with no information? But that's all that I have.
Has it worked for you throughout the years? You haven't had trouble with that along the way?
No.
Really?
No, but nobody cares what's on there, just that you have one. And so, I've had folks wanting to do my chart, for astrology. Impossible to do because there's no time of birth. There's no place of birth.
Right, like the numerology. You don't have any of that, do you?
There's no information there at all.
Oh.
Which, if I wasn't born here, I suppose that would be the case.
That's true.
But
you think they'd fake it, though, right? Usually they fake that kind of stuff, wouldn't they?
Well, I would think so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it would be left undone like this. And Kathy's been searching. She's a hell of a researcher. She's been digging into the past as deeply as she can, and there's just no information. Anything so far. She might at some point. But, I'm 63 years old. And
how do you know that?
Well, because of the birth certificate.
So it does say the year. It does say the year.
Yeah, it says September 11th, 1953. That's on there.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Okay.
But that's not when I was born. That's when the birth certificate was created.
So when do you think you were born?
No idea.
Okay, so you're going with this 63. If you're going that route, you might as well say you're younger. What the heck? Have some fun.
Well, I've tried that, and unfortunately, it's starting to look as though I might have gotten here earlier than the birth certificate.
I don't know. I think you could go for your 50s. I think you could go for that for sure. That's interesting. Wow. Okay. All right. So you were found by the military, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you had said, I thought this was interesting too, you had said that they came too late because you had frostbite.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, obviously they came and found you, so somebody had to notify somebody that you were there.
Well, from what I've been told, because all of this is hearsay, it's impossible to validate because the channels of investigation are closed. It's all been secreted away somehow, and who knows by whom or why. But what I was told is that I wasn't the only one who was brought here, that there were numerous others, and that program carried on for several years after I arrived, and probably had been going on for several years before I did. I wasn't the vanguard. And the government, the United States government, apparently had some agreement with these people from other worlds, and that the agreement was this is going to happen. And so the military were the ones in charge of getting the details of where the children would be deposited, picked up in a timely manner, hopefully, and then taken to a hospital, and then, whatever came next.
Do you think it's possible that there were other kids with you that same night?
I wonder about that. Because at the same time that I was growing, my mother's sister had an unusual child with her as well. Her name was Barbara. And apparently, from everything they told me, this gal, this little girl, looked like, very close to what I look like. And they say that, she got sick and died when she was 3. Mm. But there's something about that story that doesn't add up, you see. And what doesn't add up about this is that I have met someone whose name is Barbara, who was adopted, and her adopted family was in Northern California. Her father worked for Northrop, and he was he was in top secret security clearance stuff. And she's tall, and she has I saw her early pictures, and she looked like she could have been my sister, and she was thoroughly convinced that she was. So I don't know if she is or not, but it just seems rather peculiar to me.
Well, so the military, from what you're told, takes you, and you're in the hospital for a little bit because of frostbite, because they left you there too long. And then at one point, you were given to a family. How did they choose that family? I mean, if let's say I'm adopting, I'd want to know if you came out of the sky and were in a found in a house by yourself, an abandoned house. Did they just, hey, let's just put them into families and kind of infiltrate Kentucky?
Well, it was more than Kentucky. I believe it was the entire world.
I'm sure. Right.
But, their criteria, I don't know. Yeah. This fellow who was my father, he passed away when I was 7. He was in the military at Fort Knox, and I've not been able to find out what he did. I mean, he might have just been a mechanic or a cook, who knows? But I've not been able to find the information about him, which is puzzling to me. I should be able to find something about him. Mm-hmm. I mean, if there was some criteria involved, it isn't obvious to me.
You don't realize that stuff's going on, so close here. There's a lot of things in Kentucky. You got the Bigfoot everywhere. You've got a lot of UFO stories here, a lot. Very famous stories. You got the little green men, the little silver guys, and Kelly, Kentucky, and you've got a lot of stuff going on around Mammoth Cave, as we talked about, and the portals and things like that. Just a lot of interesting things. And the big, the gold apparently was here. I don't know if it's there or not. I think people, debate that. But even that's a big deal, because I think some of the reasons somebody from another planet might come is because of gold. I think that's something that they might use as well as we do, like we do in our computers, right? I don't know if that's real or not, but it's all pretty interesting that people would think this is just a little hoedown state, but there's a lot of interesting things going on here. So right? I mean...
Oh, yeah. As far as the gold, though, I mean, if they could travel between worlds, there are plenty of places for gold that are uninhabited.
You never know. Maybe we got special gold,
Well, it very well could be.
That's right. I mean, who knows? But so your mom basically raises you and doesn't like that you have these neat little abilities that you are finding out that you have.
No, that's true. When my father died, there were things that happened before he died. And I'll address what you just said in just a moment. But some of these things that happened were looking back on them, they were really very odd and somewhat extraordinary. For example, going to Florida every year, staying at a place so that we could visit with my Uncle Sam. Visiting Uncle Sam meant getting into a Lincoln Continental, a big black car, and driving out into the swampland, getting out of the car, getting into a boat, going down some waterway, getting to a point to where there's just a wall of trees and limbs and everything in front of you, and then this guy raises up out of the bushes, all covered with tree stuff. It was camouflage. At the time, I didn't know what that was. And he pulls a chain, hand over hand, and pulls this wall, which goes backwards. And the boat continues on through. The wall goes back down. Go another 15, 20 minutes, and pull up to shore. And once we're on shore, these soldiers greet us. And this one particular soldier, I remembered him after having been there 2 or 3 times. He always gave me a stick of juicy fruit gum.
Yum. It only lasts about 30 seconds of flavor, then it's gone. But anyway, go ahead.
And then the guys that come out of the building that are dressed like head to toe in a white outfit with a hood. And now I know it's a contamination suit, but at the time I didn't know what it was. Oh. And I would go with them. Next thing I know, I don't know what happened in there because I would wake up back in the hotel room. And this happened year after year for I don't know how many years. I mean, I started remembering this about 4 years old, and under hypnosis, I remembered back to 3. It didn't happen again after he died. Well, when he died, there were these guys that showed up in military uniforms with other guys with them in dark outfits, like suits. And they insisted that my mother hand me over to them because I was their property.
Is this men in black suits?
Well, they were in black suits, but I don't know that they were men in black. Okay. They it seemed to me like they were special forces or lawyers or, who knows what. These guys in the suits had all kinds of embroidery on them and all kinds of little badge things on their chest. Important looking. They'd shown up many times in my life. I had met them and others when my father took me to this place that was in the basement of a Masonic temple. And when I was there, there were a lot of very strange and unusual things. Strange to me because I didn't understand it. But, people that I met there, and these people were usually in that mix. And I was always told that when I grew up, I was already going to go to the Air Force Academy, that they had a place waiting for me there. Well, of course, that never happened. And when these fellows showed up after my father died, my mother pulled out the birth certificate that has really nothing on it and waved it at him, says, in no uncertain terms, that they were not taking me, that I was her son. And that was that, and ordered him out. We immediately packed up our things, and we left for Kentucky. And that's when we moved into a property that was on my aunt's farm, which was basically a chicken coop that had slightly been remodeled. And that's where we stayed for a couple, 3 years.
Wow. So, do you know the area of Florida that was? Was it on the Gulf of Mexico side, or?
Well, I've tried to find this because Kathy and I have gone down to Florida a few times. And I don't know really where it was at. It was in the Everglades, and it was somewhere around Lake Okeechobee. But, I was a kid. I wasn't really paying attention. I was told to watch for alligators. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking for out the windows. We're driving along looking for alligators.
Right. And they're everywhere. I lived there for like 20 years. Wow, that's pretty interesting. And it's scary, the fact that they had these radiation suits on and you didn't. So.
Well, I don't know if they were radiation, but they were contamination suits.
Yeah, but you didn't have them.
What I find strange is that they gave me a stick of gum every time, and after chewing the gum for a bit and walking with these guys, I don't remember anything until I woke up the next day back in the hotel room. And that was always the case with my Uncle Sam.
Wow. Any word from Uncle Sam? I mean, I guess it all ended after your dad passed away, right?
Yeah, it did. It did. Ended up living in Kentucky, and that's when more high strangeness started happening. It would take a few years, about 5. And then it was about that time in the 60s. I don't remember the dates exactly. It's the early 60s, though, I believe. And there were UFO sightings left, right, and center, all over the place. Family, I think it was in Hopkinsville. This thing had happened to them, but there were people seeing these things, and they were really afraid because, you get into the back in the hills of Kentucky, which is where I lived. And I was only 20 miles from Elizabethtown, 20 miles. But back then, that was really very rural. We didn't have indoor plumbing and had an outhouse and got our water out of a well. So it was very, very rural. And the folks are very superstitious and quite religious. And anything like this that they see, they don't understand, they're going to be very cautious of. And that's where it started getting into issues for me, because all this time I'm able to see into the other side.
What do you mean by that?
Ghosts, spirits, whatever you want to call them. Different people in the family, not very frequently, but when they would die, I would see them. And they would give me messages to give to the others, which really freaked everyone out.
When you see dead people, I know a lot of people that have seen dead people. They see them all the time. It's not, they don't have a choice, they're there. When you see them, do they look totally normal? As if, that's what I was always told. They look exactly like me or you would look.
Yeah.
How did you know they were dead?
Well, on some occasions, because I already knew that they had died.
They had died.
But in one occasion, my mother's brother, his name was Jimmy, he was married to a woman named Betty. They lived in Colorado. And I saw her one night. She came to tell me that she had died. And she was very worried about her family because her husband was a drunk. And there needed to be a message delivered to Jimmy to give him some warning, give him some advice, because she was just adamant. She was so upset about this. And she just died suddenly. It wasn't as though she was sick. She just fell over dead. Well, I, of course, felt compelled. I needed to tell someone. I told my mom. She didn't want to hear it. So everyone has a weird uncle, and I did too. And I told him, and he listened very keenly. And the next thing you know, they're on their way to Colorado. Well, the kink in this story, really, that blew everyone's mind, is that I got up that morning and told everyone, told my mom, really, that I had seen my Aunt Betty, that she had died. And she said, well, that's crazy. Don't talk like that. I don't want to hear that kind of talk. She's just fine. The phone rings, and it's my mother's sister calling to tell her that Betty had died. Mm-hmm. And so she got pretty freaked out by that. And that was just one aspect. When we talk about UFOs or healing, any of these things, it just got worse and worse with the overwhelming conviction to get more and more quiet and withdrawn with it, because I kept getting warned over and over. You don't talk about this. Don't talk about this in front of people. I don't want to hear about it, and none of this is real. But how could I say it wasn't real? I was seeing it.
Right. Did she believe you and just didn't want to deal with it, or she didn't believe you?
I think she believed me, and she was afraid. Especially when the UFOs, when that episode, it went on for 5 years. When all that started happening, they would just be right outside the window in a flying saucer. Really 30 feet away. And I asked them to do this so I could show my mom.
Yeah,
and
let's freak out your mom. Who hates
well,
this
so
stuff.
she would know I was.
Well, absolutely.
So she said, "No, I'm telling the truth."
I get that, but you freaked her out.
She wouldn't even look.
Oh my gosh. It did scare her.
Yeah. So I learned to be very quiet. I made a mistake of this farmer that lived nearby. He hurt his knee getting off a tractor. It was muddy and he slipped. And, when you're 13, 14, if someone's 50, they're old. So this guy was old and he was rubbing his knee. And so I just said, let me see if I can help. And I just reached over and just put my hands on his knee. And within a few minutes, I took my hands off and his knee wasn't hurting. He was able to walk because he really couldn't walk before that. And he got really upset, said something's wrong with you, boy, and got up and walked home because he dropped the tractor off at our farm. He'd borrowed it.
Did he say thank you?
No, he just said,
something's wrong with you.
Yeah, well, something's wrong with you, boy. Just don't come around me. Keep away from me. Well, it got around the community, and everybody thought that I was some kind of a really, dangerous, but someone to be avoided, a whack job. I don't know what you'd call it. They were afraid the devil was in me, or who knows what. So I was ostracized, really. And, I basically just had to learn to be quiet about all of this because I didn't have much of a choice. I didn't have a vocabulary where I could talk about it. I mean, how do you describe this? You have to invent words, probably. And who are you going to talk to? Because no one really gave a damn. They didn't want to hear about it. Even if I had, later in life, I'd try to tell, my spouse, and it's like, that ain't real. I don't want to hear about this.
She did the same thing. Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think that your mom, you said she was probably scared. Do you think she knew what her husband, when he was alive, was into? And maybe,
sure she did.
Then maybe she knew exactly who and what you were. You just never wanted to think about it.
I think she knew exactly what the situation was. One of the pieces of information that I came across, and this is only within the past, 5 or 6 years, is that she used to have these meetings with a lawyer in Elizabethtown. Now, keep in mind, dirt poor, which is just abject poverty, is how we were living. She had to meet up with this lawyer periodically.
That's expensive.
Well, someone was paying for it.
Yeah.
And I also found was issuing them a check every month. And I thought at the time it was, Social Security or benefits or whatever it is. I've not been able to find out what it was, but I found out that it wasn't that. But I don't know what it was. And it had something to do with this lawyer. So, anyway, it's a very, very strange thing.
Are you still looking into that, or?
I don't really care one way or the other.
You're past it.
I am. Kathy's very keen. She's very keen to know answers. And if she wants to know, then, I hope she finds them.
Yeah.
I tell people off and on, I have told folks about my story. And it's as though there's an element there that they don't want to believe it or they can't believe it, which I understand. It's a crazy story when I listen to myself talk about it. That's why I don't like to talk about it really very much. But then there's others that really want to make a big deal of the fact that what if it's true? What does this mean? You're special. I'm not special. And visiting from Australia or Germany or something. They're just from another place. They're no more special than I am. If I am from somewhere else, then so be it. But it isn't a big deal.
It's cool. Are you nuts? It's crazy. That is awesome. That would be cool. Yeah, I'm from somewhere else. Well, along the way, I think a lot of us, especially people that are in, as blue rockers or people that listen to Coast, just, those of us that like to go outside of the box. I don't know. I think that's exciting. I think that most of us already feel like we don't belong here, because when we do say things, and it just doesn't fit in with everybody's 9 to 5 kind of, zombie life. It's, there's so much more out there to look at. And, I'm still a believer in God. It only makes God bigger. It makes, it gives God even more credit, if you can imagine that, when these stories come out. And that's always hard too, when you say you believe this kind of stuff, and then people that think you're a devil worshiper because of it. And, they go to church all the time and they say that to you, and you're like, you have no idea how much bigger God is because of knowing this. That's how I feel about it.
Well, and I agree with you. I have no idea what God is. I just know that God exists. And as far as, it giving more validation to the presence of the creative spirit, the creator, whatever God might mean to one person or the other. In my conversations over the years with the extraterrestrials that I've had an opportunity to have a conversation with, and it hasn't happened in quite a while now, but I did ask them about this. And they told me that every culture has its own version of a God story because it's necessary. Because every sentient culture knows there's something more than themselves, but they don't know what it is, and they have to create a story in order for it to be ever present at their mind, and that they have a point of focus. And I don't know what the different stories are for the different places, but it's obvious to me that this presence we call God is something that permeates the cosmos, and it is indeed infinite, and it doesn't have a boundary. It is the ultimate everything, I suppose. The intelligent infinity, it was told to me once.
Ooh, I like that. I want to, let's see, I think you were going to answer something for me. Oh, what do dead people look like besides knowing that they died? Is there some sort of difference?
Sometimes they're transparent and sometimes they're solid. And I don't know why, one to the other. But they look just like us. I mean, they looked before they died.
I don't know if you have a way of knowing this, but I wonder if they look age-wise when they died, or if they can decide, hey, I want to look 25 again when I show myself to someone that can see dead people and give my message. Would the leather jacketed Elvis show up, or would the older one with the white show up when he could walk around? I wonder about that. The fact that you actually see them is pretty amazing, and they have clothes on, right?
Yeah, they're not standing around naked.
No, that's nice.
Yeah, but if they're ghosts, what are they covering?
Right. Well, you can have fun with that one next time. You see?
Yeah. I'll just let them have X-ray vision.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you can see everything. Can you see even through the camera?
I prefer not to answer that.
But you can, so it doesn't matter. I've always wondered that. Okay. I don't think it was the Brady Bunch, but it was around that time. Maybe the Brady Bunch was on before, but there was some sort of show. This was a whole different show, but it was a show where they put a mirror up to the camera and said, I just want to know if you can see yourself. I thought, that's pretty cool. So,
that's pretty.
But there is a difference, right? I noticed that I can sense things when things are there. Now, I don't know. Maybe there's times things are there that I don't sense, but there are times I sense things, and I put that to growing up in a haunted house and always wondering where that thing is so I can go on the other side of the house. It's more of my protection. But you learn that ambiance and you get better and better along the way. Mm-hmm. So, I know that when I'm on radio or even TV, I can feel if I've lost a bunch of people from what I just said or not. Like the other day, I did an audition for a show, and at one point, the guy was right there. He was enthralled, the casting director, producer guy. And then I mentioned politics. It just happened to work in that story a little bit. and I felt him, go away, go away, go away. You can feel it drop, the attention. It's just like being on Coast or here. You can feel when people are excited, or you can feel it drop down. Mm-hmm. So your eyes, where you can see things, and when you're doing your healing, or just in general, you could see, to the cell, one of my cells in my body, but you could also see anything you wanted through the clothes. So you can still do that through the camera.
Well, not necessarily. I was goofing around with you when I said I didn't want to answer it.
Well, see, that's kind of interesting if you could. So stop that. Don't be goofing around. I'm trying to get the truth.
Good heavens. Well, the reality is, in order to do this sort of thing, I have to be in a certain frame of reference.
Oh, okay.
And being on camera with you, I'm not in that frame of reference. And it would be very hard to jump into that state.
Don't. That is interesting, though. That would be neat to find out.
Well, I'm sure there are people that can. It's just something that I'm not, very skilled at doing when I'm on camera. But I'm like you. I do feel when there are people listening, when there's interest, and there's definitely a vibe. It's a feedback, kind of like being on stage and performing music, which I've done that off and on for good part of my life, and you can feel the vibe from the audience. And if you really tune into it, you can give them what they might want.
So people are asking about you seeing auras.
Yeah, well, I don't call it an aura. Because every person or animal or plant has a field of energy around them. And while some people attribute different circumstances to different colors, I don't find that very useful because it's highly subjective. We can both eat an apple, and we'll both say, oh, that tastes like an apple, but I'll never know what it tastes like to you.
Right.
So when people are talking about, oh, well, I see your aura and it's such and such, that's what it means to that person, and they're implying that this is what it should mean to the person they're looking at, but what if it's not true? So I do see the energy field around people, the aura, if you like, and I see colors, and I see movement, and shading, and lines, and all kinds of things. But the information means something to me. And when people say, well, does my energy field look really good? Of course it does. The energy coming off of you is the evidence that God exists. God lives here first and radiates outward from you. So yeah, it looks really good, but there might be a little bit of this or that could be enhanced and made better. When I'm working on a person, I try to look at their aura, their field first. Because if there's something wrong with them, I want to be able to see it in the field. And that kind of helps me to cut to the chase on where I want to go look for the source of their problem. They might have sore shoulders and arthritic fingers, but I'm not going to go there and take a look because they've already told me they've got sore shoulders and arthritic fingers. I want to know why this is happening. Mm-hmm. And when I know why it's happening, then I can figure out what to do about it. And, of course, I can go in and help the shoulders and the fingers and all that jazz. But it's kind of like having a splinter. If you had a splinter in your finger and you came to me and said, well, my finger really hurts, and I've been to a couple of doctors, and they tell me it's inflamed, and I take a look at it and go, well, you've got a splinter in your finger. Well, can you get it out? I mean, I don't know what to do. I said, no, here's some tweezers. Get it out yourself.
Yeah.
It kind of creeps me out to get a splinter out of somebody's finger. I've done it, and then you get it out, and then we'll work on making it better. The inflammation will just magically go away because it's how the body heals itself. Well, that's not how it is in the medical community. Oh, you've got inflammation, take these pills to make that inflammation go away. But the splinter is still there.
They're not taking it out? They got to take that thing out.
Well, they're not really even seeing that it's there. But the metaphor here is that this is me looking for the source of the problem instead of looking at what the complaint about the problem is.
Yeah.
I'm looking for why is it like this.
Yeah, not a Band-Aid going in there to fix it.
Yeah.
So you go in so we've skipped to the healing part, you can actually see cells.
Yeah.
And when you said you kind of have to get into that mode, is it pretty natural, or is it you got to meditate for a while, or what?
No, I don't have to meditate. I just have to shift my focus. You know, it used to be many years ago that I would sit there and just sort of wait. And I would wait for my hands to start getting burning hot. And when I got burning hot, at that point, I knew I was ready to do something to help someone. Or if I was around someone sick and it just sort of poof and it started getting really burning hot feeling. And this is like putting your hands in really hot water. That's what the feeling is like to me. It's almost at the edge of hurting. But I never could turn it on or turn it off. It just happened on its own, willy-nilly. I was in Raleigh, North Carolina, many years ago. Kathy and I were together, and I was at this doctor's office, and there was a man there, a woman there, who had been a nurse 12 years prior, and she, for her husband, had gotten breast implants. And within a short amount of time, one of the implants just leaked and filled her body with silicone. And now she's on basically a kind of a life support regime, because she would get a test on Thursday, and then she would get her test and results on Monday, and then she would get the next round of whatever on Thursday again. She couldn't walk. She was very susceptible to the cold, and just in a lot of pain. She was a really neat gal. I felt bad for her. So here I am in this doctor's office who wanted to see what I can do. Well, that's a bit intimidating anyway. But I knew this fellow, so I wasn't really that wigged out. But still, I mean, I hate proving myself, but this gal deserved me to work on her. So I'm sitting there, and I'm waiting for my hands to get hot. And they are not. And I'm thinking, oh, hell, come on. I'm breathing, doing whatever I can think of. Got to relax. And finally I said, all right, God, what's the deal here? You don't want me to fix this woman? Then that's fine. But I don't know how to turn this on. I don't know how to turn this off. I'm waiting on you to throw the switch. And somewhere deep inside, it wasn't a voice, but it was a knowing. It was like, I'm not going to throw the switch any longer. It's up to you to throw the switch.
Ooh.
I'm thinking to myself, all right, how the hell do I do that? And it's just real simple. Take a deep breath, close your eyes. Just allow it to happen. You're pushing. You shouldn't be pushing. You just allow it to happen. And so I sat there and thought about that, tried it. Hands got burning hot. So I worked on her. As soon as they got hot, I didn't want them to go cold again. So I worked on her. I worked on her for 20 minutes or so. And when I finished, it's like, well, that's all I can do. And she's saying, well, your hands were really hot. So, yeah, I'm sorry if they were too hot. No, it's fine. And I said, well, I don't know if I've helped you or not, but, let me help you get off the table when you're ready. And her wheelchair was sitting there because she really couldn't walk. She swung off of her legs off the table. She could stand to get to her wheelchair. And when she did, her keys fell on the floor. So she just instinctively just bent down, picked them up, stood up again, and I couldn't do that before. So she spent the next hour with us walking around a parking lot in cold rain in Raleigh, North Carolina, and was just very happy that she was feeling so much better.
Absolutely loving every minute of it.
The lady left. I never saw her again. I've never seen her since. But a week later, as we were driving down to South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, got a phone call. She had gotten my number from this doctor. I told him it's fine if she wants to call me. I'd like to know how she is. She says she went to take the test on Tuesday. She got called in on Thursday, but she didn't get any medicine.
Sorry. Okay, yeah. Okay. That look all right?
Oh,
okay.
I like it.
You got messed up there. It was bugging me. You sure it's okay? All right. Okay. Wait a minute. Sorry, I'm messing up your story. Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm enjoying this. Do that again.
Okay. It's like messing it up there. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, anyway, she called to tell me that she'd gotten the test. She was had just left that doctor's office. They wanted to know what had happened because she had no trace of anything wrong with her at all.
Excellent.
See, this treatment was for her liver because it went in and just congested her liver. And she says, I've been feeling really good. Everything seems great. And now they're telling me I've got nothing wrong with me after all these years. It's a miracle. And so that was the first time that I did this with me controlling it. And since then, I've gotten to where I can control it quite well.
That's cool.
And when I teach classes, I try to teach the folks, you need to be able to call on this at a moment's notice in the worst of times, because really it's the worst of times when you're really needed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that is a challenge, but it can be done.
Can you take care of yourself too? Let's say you hurt your elbow. Can you take your other hand and put it on there after you heat it up? Or do you not even need that? It already goes and heals itself.
It just heals. I fell off the side of a mountain a few years back. It's coming down from this ancient site outside of Ollanta in Peru. And I slipped, and I went cartwheeling down this lava rock-strewn mountain. And by the time I stopped, I had no skin left on either of my hands. I had a bone sticking out of this arm.
Yikes.
Right, probably can't see on the camera, but there's a scar right here where the bone was sticking through. I don't know if you can see that or not. Probably not. Mm. I get a magic marker and highlight it.
Okay, scar was here.
Scar was here.
Arrow.
I don't know, dislocated shoulder, fractured ribs. That was a mess. And then I had to get up and get back to where Kathy was. I pulled, everything back into place. It hurt pretty bad, but I did. And I walked back to the bus and finally got to a medical center where they cleaned the wounds and so forth. But there's no x-ray machine working in the backwaters of Peru on the frontier. So it'd be 5 days before I could get back to Lima. Where this bone had popped through, it was just god-awful. It was just, I was afraid it was going to go septic. Mm. That's why I went to that clinic. Hurt to breathe. And besides, I couldn't do anything. Both of my hands were just, there was no skin there.
Ooh.
It was just raw. It was awful. Well, I was able to grow the skin back on my hands by the next day.
Really?
And in 5 days, I was back in Lima going for x-rays.
Wow.
Kathy insisted, and the insurance company insisted as well. By then, I could breathe just fine. They took x-rays, and they couldn't find that I'd ever had a broken bone. There were no fractures, and the skin was completely back on my hands again, as though nothing had happened.
You know what's interesting about that, besides all of it already, but remember the Verhanga incident?
No, what was that?
I think Verhanga, it's over there in the area you're talking about. It's a city over there. That's where, I guess it was 2 or 3 different alien, there's like some sort of crash, some sort of UFO crash, and the aliens that came out of the craft were not the typical grays. They had a different look to them. had like almost a Sleestak kind of look, and they were trying to run away and hide. One of them was hurt, and the military had picked it up. The leg was hurt on it, and this is the story. They were able to take this small creature to their local hospital, and the doctors were, the military guys had their guns saying, hey, you're going to take care of it. You're going to fix this, so they didn't know what to do. But they were looking at it. And at one point, there's a whole story behind it. It's a wonderful downloading of information, fog in the room, a green fog, I think. Lots of really cool stuff. But at one point, the leg healed up really quickly, right in front of their eyes kind of thing. I mean, It was amazing. And to hear that, that was the first time when I read it, I heard something like that. I thought, wow, that's amazing. And then here you're saying that. So it's interesting that you being from somewhere else and that happening. That's pretty cool. Teach us. You think we can do it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know why not. It seems like it should be a talent everyone would possess. It's not the only time I've ever been hurt, and things have healed remarkably fast.
Well, even Jesus in the Bible would say what he could do, or he would do what he could do, and then he would say, you could do this too.
Well, and I think that's true. And I've had people in the past that have, said, well, show me what you can do. Show me what. And I've done it.
Did you mess with them?
Sometimes.
Oh, let's hear one of those stories. Come on.
There was a doctor who came to see me who had a skiing accident and broke his ankle. This was in Phoenix many years ago. And so he didn't believe any of this, thought it was a bunch of hooey, but he was doing this because one of his patients just kept nagging him to do it. His foot had grown back. It wasn't set properly, and it had grown back crooked. So, being the jerk that he was, he finally decided he would come and see me. And he wasn't very pleasant. I was, wondering if I should even bother because he wasn't a nice man. But I went ahead and melted the ankle, reformed it, and then I bent his foot the other direction way too far. And
that's hilarious.
He stood up on it. His foot's now going off severely to the right instead of being curved under at the right side, curving in. And he's like, well, no, that won't do at all. Now it's too far off to the right. So,
oops.
I said, oh, darn. I overshot my mark. Well, here, sit down. Let me try it again. So I tried it again, and then I bent it way too far to the left. And now he's saying, well, now it's like pigeon-toed. This isn't going to do. Can't you do this right? And I said, of course I can. So I put it back where it was supposed to be, and, his foot went flat on the floor. It was pointing straight forward like it should be. And he got all excited and stood up and handed me this check that was just huge. It's like Publishers Clearinghouse check size.
Nice.
Just a huge check.
Wow.
And it wasn't the money, it was the size of the paper.
Oh, I thought he was finally being a good guy.
No.
Oh.
And he left without saying anything. And so I told Kathy I'd been screwing with him, and she thought that was funny. She said, but you really shouldn't do that.
No, that was great. That was classic.
Yeah, I had fun doing it. He was a jerk.
You should have left it pigeon-toed or the other way out, or straight up or something.
Oh, if I had done that, then it would have been repercussions. Sometimes I'm working on people, and there are things that I could fix, but it just isn't working. I should be able to fix this, but I can't. And I used to think, I'd be working on 5 or 6 people with similar issues, and then I work on this one person and nothing happens. And it was just the bane of my existence, because why would it be? And then I came to understand, through a series of dreams, really, that some people need to have this wrong with them because it's part of their path on their journey back to the divine. And I'm not supposed to mess with it.
I've heard that before, and even psychologists will use that, where that's something they want to get rid of something emotional, but then they really don't, because that's what they're holding on to as well for safety. But yours is a little deeper than that. Yours is, past lives and things like that, right? Destinies.
Yeah, destiny perhaps. Past lives, I don't dabble in that very much. I know it's real. I've seen mine. I remember many of mine very clearly. I always have. But, when I look into the lives that other people have had, quite often they have a very clear idea of themselves, of what their story is. And I'm not going to contradict that, because that's part of their personality, part of who they are. And if I see something different, it's like, that's fine. I don't need to go there.
There's somebody I know, there's a lot, when you get into this world, and you start reaching out to people and hanging out with them, especially remote viewing, you'll really meet some really, cool people that can see these things as you. I remember talking to someone who was very talented, and I asked a question, and he had said, you're not allowed to know that answer. And I said, I don't think they knew the answer. And I would have preferred them to say that, because to me, this is just my thought. And this is my thought, and it's true, darn it. I think that if I wasn't supposed to know the answer, then I would have never come across the question.
I agree with you. Yeah. When people say things like that to me, that's when I'm calling bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when I'm like, no, you don't know the answer, because I would never come up to a question like that, so, yeah.
The whole point of being, of sound mind, inquisitive thinking, is if you have a question, it compels you to find an answer if you're that kind of person. Not everyone is.
Yeah, yeah.
And if someone says that to you in the future, just tell them, I don't know what's wrong with you.
That's right.
You got dropped on your head or something when you were a kid.
You can tell you were born or lived here in Kentucky with some of the sayings you say along the way. It's great. It's like, that's all hometown. Now you're out there in Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
You're in Phoenix. That's a great place, and it's nice and warm there. Well, you're missing another wet, drizzly, nasty, cool day in Kentucky.
I've had my share of those, and I just as soon leave that in distant memory file number 002.
I get it. I absolutely get it. So one of the things you talked about, by the way, this is Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. If you're just joining us, this is Jerry Wills with us tonight. This is our Far Out Thursday, or our signature Thursday of Blue Rock Talk, Earth's most interesting conversations, people, places, and things. And Jerry's a pretty interesting guy. I had him on Coast to Coast on Saturday night. It was a blast, but he only told about this much of everything he could tell. So brought him back on. We'll have to have him on here many times here on Blue Rock Talk. Let me just real quickly hit some of the questions that are in here for you. Okay?
Sure. That'll be fine.
So Arlo wants to know, Arlo Thor, do you have any childhood pictures of him with his uncle or these other band of merry men? Did you get any pictures back then?
Kentucky, moved down to Florida to live with my sister. And I don't know exactly what happened. I've got some of the pictures, but I don't have any of the Uncle Sam character. And, of course, when you're that young, you're not thinking about taking pictures anyway. I was thinking about getting back to pancakes and running on the beach.
Yeah, or that little juicy fruit gum. That was a big deal for us when we were kids.
Oh, yeah.
That was good. Just for about 30 seconds, then the flavor's gone, and that's it. It's over. Plus, back then, people weren't taking pictures all the time. Just wasn't happening. When the big mothership came down in Stevensville, Texas, what was that? Was that 97 or something? Do you remember any of that?
I remember.
Was that 97, 98, 99, something like that?
98 or 99.
Okay. Well, when that occurred, a lot of people said, well, where's all the pictures? Well, that's a lot of farmland out there. Nobody's just out, walking around ready for it. And those people out there, that's not, you're in a city, that's a whole different thing because everybody's like this while they're walking around, But out there, that's farmland. That's the last thing they're thinking about. They probably don't even have Wi-Fi. But when you're in that situation too, I think there's a couple things that occur. First of all, you're checking it out yourself and going, holy cow. Another situation is a lot of times your equipment doesn't work anymore. And I guess that's really about it.
Well, I can give you a great example of this. We were in Pennsylvania and near Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. And Kathy had asked me if I would please try to contact the ETs so they would fly by or show up or something. She wanted to see them. And I've tried before and nothing happened. But I decided, why not? I mean, this is really important for Kathy. She's believing me. She's taking me on faith. She's not seen what I've seen. She's heard the stories, and she'd like to see something. Well, so I went outside. We were at this abandoned, not really abandoned, but it was an empty place. Not abandoned at all. It was a New Age shop, an apartment above, and I was out there doing talks and working with people. It was in a very rural setting, right next to an old air base, airport. Sorry, just an airport, an old airport that had been closed down. So I went out, just sort of sent out the feelers, just I'm here. If you guys want to talk, show up. Because I have questions for those folks if I ever come back. Did you say,
I've got a really hot chick over here I'm trying to impress. Would you show up, please?
Well, that might have worked. I'll have to remember to do that next time, Connie. Well, and I got this message back, we'll see you tomorrow night. I was like, okay. So I told Kathy, it's like 11 o'clock at night. I said, they said they'll show up tomorrow night. When? Well, I don't know. I guess they'll let me know. The next night comes, and the guy that ran this place had lost his wife, and he really needed to talk to somebody, me. Kathy was outside with this other kid who was kind of hanging on and wanting to talk to her and to me about, psychic things. And everyone else was gone, and here comes this other fellow, and he shows up. He wants to do it right now. So, that's fine. Let's go upstairs. That's job one. Go upstairs. Meanwhile, Kathy and this kid are outside talking, and there's a bright light over the trees. And as they watch, the bright light gets closer and closer, and it is quite low. Now, Kathy has a real keen sense of taking pictures of unusual things. But this thing was 500, 600 feet long, 100 feet above her, and just gliding noiselessly right just about above the house by maybe 50 feet higher than this two-story place. She was dumbstruck and didn't get any pictures at all.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, she and this kid. And so I get done with this fellow, come downstairs. You'll never believe what happened. Da-da-da-da-da. I said, well, I'll be go to hell. Why couldn't they have waited an hour?
Yeah.
I wanted to meet up with these guys.
Sure.
And I know it was them.
Well, who's them?
It's the group that I had contact with when I was living on the farm in Kentucky. They said they were from Tau City. The guy's name, well, I'm not going to give the guy's name. It doesn't matter anyway. But he and several of his kind would frequent coming by periodically when I was growing up on the farm. Because like I said, we were in a rural area. And
yeah, you were saying that on Coast, that they came down in a UFO and would talk to you. Well, I kind of like to know his name. Is it some cool name, or is it like the Palladian's name was Rich? Okay, that's a typical, human name. Did they have any cool name?
No, this guy's name was Zoe.
Zoe's
Z
cool.
And O.
That's cool.
far as I know. I mean, he didn't spell it for me, but it was pronounced Zoe. And the other ones, I might have known their name. I don't remember. But Zoe, I saw every single time.
That's interesting. Did he look any different, or did he look just
No.
like a human?
Just like people, except what he was wearing wasn't like anything people wear. You know, now you would say, "Oh, you're wearing a Lycra one piece." You know, but back then there wasn't any Lycra, at least not that I know of. And you know, a one piece thing that, you know, there's not even shoes. It just became, you know, shoes. It was just a one piece thing, fit right up to the neck, right up to the wrists. Form fitting. The guy looked like he was an athlete. So no, it was always that kind of an outfit. It was always the same color, kind of a light beige color. That's just what I expected when I would see him. You know, winter or summer, day or night. It was always the same thing. The others, they wore different shades of pastel colors. It didn't vary all that much, though.
Little fashion, fashion was going on.
Maybe a little bit, but it was very muted shades of tan to brown, or a blue shade. You know, it wasn't a deep blue. It was kind of not a powder blue either. It was more of the indigo color of blue, but it was very pastel light looking.
How often did they come see you?
It varied. You know, it could be once a week, or it could be twice a week.
Oh, that's a lot. That's excellent.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, it might be a couple of weeks and I wouldn't see them. So it wasn't on a set schedule.
You think they were coming back just to check on you, see how you were doing? Maybe that was even your dad. What do you think about that? Maybe that was dad checking on son.
I've wondered about that.
Have you? Yeah. I
have no way to know if that was or not. But, well, who he was, really, I just don't know.
Have you asked for him to come back or anything? When was the last time you saw him?
Oh, God, it's since Pennsylvania. That when Kathy saw this craft, I haven't seen them since, I don't know, 20 years, 25 years.
You know why they might have? Isn't that cough button great? Isn't that a great thing?
Yes, it is.
Whoever came up with that was a serious cougher. and they were like, I got to stop this. Or the person on the other side that had to hear the coughing all the time.
Yes.
They're the ones who made it.
I'm going to need some water, I think.
Go for it.
I'll ask Kathy to bring me something.
That's what I'm doing here. That's pretty neat. I mean, did they just stop out of nowhere, or did they say, look, we're not going to come by anymore for a while, or you're on your own, son?
At 18, they told me to go out into the world.
I'll wait till you have some water if you'd like.
Well, told me to go out into the world and live like everybody else does. Experience life on this world and do what everyone else does. Be a part of life on this planet. That's how they put it.
Did they say report back, or just have a good time, or this is what you wanted?
No.
Or?
Oh, thank you, sweetie.
Yeah.
Hey there, Kathy.
Water.
Welcome to the show.
Pittsburgh, not Philadelphia.
It was Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't remember things like that. Connie says hello to you.
I always correct you.
Is she watching you in the other room?
I don't know. Are you watching in the other room, Kat?
Yeah, I found out about
Oh, okay. Yes, she is.
Oh, that's good. She could have said, I see him all the time. I don't need it. Yeah.
I can't imagine why she'd want to watch me. I wouldn't watch me. It's too damn boring.
Well, let's go back to, and by the way, the incident in Verhanga, it was Dr. Lear. Thank you, Bruce Ross Morgan. And it was Dr. Lear that taught me how to say it, Verhanga. So if somebody thinks I said it wrong, that's how he taught me to say it. But he wrote about that story. He got all the information on it. It's very interesting. You probably like that one. And it might be in an area you've been in before. So let's see. Green Orlites. Let me see some of those others. So if you have a question, you guys put it into caps. so I can find it that way. Otherwise, I'm not going to see it. So let's go up to the time when you were talking about the other guys that sound similar to Zoes in Peru, right? And
yeah.
You had Rich, who was somebody from, he claimed he was Palladian. Did he tell you that? I can't remember.
Well, that's what he told me.
Okay.
Gosh, I lectured all over the world about UFOs for a while, and you hear a lot of stories.
Yeah.
You meet a lot of people. So when someone comes up to you, now the Barbara Marciniak's book, Bringers of the Dawn, is so popular. In Phoenix, everybody was channeling the Pleiadians, or they were a Pleiadian. So I'd roll my eyes and go, sure. And I thought it was pretty goofy. Well, now here I am in Peru, and there's this guy that I'm riding on top of the bus from Agua Caliente going up to Machu Picchu. And no one else up there but me. And bus stops, this guy climbs up on top, introduces himself, and, I'm like bringing it down to a very short story here, but he introduces himself, and of course, and he knows me by name. I don't know who this guy is. And he tells me that he's a Pleiadian. It's like, okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
Sure you are. Nice to meet
you, Jinx. That's hilarious.
Well, as I told you on Coast to Coast, he did some things that were truly extraordinary over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And because of this, I knew there was something very different about him. And finally, when I saw the UFO multiple times over many years, if someone lands in a UFO and says they're from the Pleiades, I'm certainly not in a position to argue with them. I mean, they got out of a damn UFO. How am I going to know where they're from?
Yeah, true.
Somebody gets out of a Ferrari and says, hey, dude, I'm from Hollywood. Okay, well, it's a Ferrari. Maybe you are.
Yeah.
So,
true.
I'm not gonna debate it with them. Just nod politely and go, well, I suppose maybe you are. Or look at this nice shiny UFO. So I just left it at that. But they were really nice folks. I met more than Rich. I met 5 or 6 other ones. Turns out that they were anthropologists and sociologists. That's what they said. I mean, whether they were or not, I have no idea. But they wanted to meet up. They wanted to meet up with the people that I brought down to Peru on trips. So I was taking people to Peru twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. And they wanted to know if it would be all right for them to mix with the groups I brought so that they could just ask questions and get to know the people and find out about them and their lives and what they thought.
Did you say $2,000 a piece? I'm just kidding. Sorry.
That would have been a good idea.
You should have given that a shot.
Give me one of those little blue box things and.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. So if you missed it on Coast to Coast, what he's talking about with this little tiny blue thing, well, I'll let you explain what that was. That's so cool.
I don't know what it was really, but when Rich showed up at the Intihuatana at Machu Picchu, I was standing on a precipice, which, when you walk away from the Intihuatana, which is a real featured place in Machu Picchu. Nowadays you can't do anything but stare at it, but back then you could sit down, meditate, and the folks I'd taken on these trips, that was one of the high points. Go to the Intihuatana, sit there, meditate for 5 minutes or so, get off, let the next person go. And so while they're doing that and the shaman are standing around, blowing the flutes or chanting, I'm over there somewhere having a cigarette, and there's a really cool place to go where you walk away from the Intihuatana back towards the entrance, but you're up on top of this high area. So you have stairs going up one side and stairs going down on the other side. And they're narrow stairs, and you can't get up there without being seen. Anyone who's ever been there probably knows this. Well, I'm standing on this precipice, which has probably a 30-foot or so just, steep incline drop-off. And I'm having a cigarette. I finish. I turn around. I walk away like I'm going to walk back towards where the people are. And there's a sound like cellophane being crinkled in someone's hand. It was kind of muted. It wasn't that sharp, crisp sound. It was kind of muted. Nothing I know of makes a sound like that at Machu Picchu. It's not an organic sound at all. So I heard that. I turned around. And there's Rich. He's standing right there at the edge, just a little ways from the edge, and just looking at me. I said, "How did you get here?" I was just standing there. There's no way in hell he could have climbed up there, because I would have heard him. He couldn't come up the stairs. I would have seen him. He wasn't there before, but now here he is now. So we talked, and he eventually showed me that the way that he gets around, he had this little thing that was on his belt. Thanks, sweetie. It was on his belt. It had a very dim little blue round depression that was luminous. And he said that this is how he gets around. And when it came time for him to leave, he put his finger on it, just like, your pointy finger, and just touched it. And he says, "I'll see you later, Jerry." He just touched it, and it wasn't like a flash of light or he just collapsed. Just suddenly it was a blue sphere, just luminous and somewhat translucent, just hanging in the air. I was 10 feet away from him. And then it just slowly moved like it was caught by the wind. Like a bubble. When you blow a bubble, it's caught by the wind. It just moves kind of weird like that. And then it just went poof. It just took off like a streak.
Wow.
And it was just gone.
How big was it?
About the size of a ping pong ball.
That's so cool.
And he later told me that, they use the same thing on the ships. They use these for themselves. The ships have a larger version of it. It's something they use.
Oh, I see. The ship can do that. Would go into a little ball. Man, did he ever get any further into that of what actually happens, and how does he pop back up out of that ball?
No, not really.
Oh man,
I
wonder what that is.
I don't know. I my entire fascination was trying to get him to let me try it.
You just wanted it. You didn't care how it worked. Give me that.
Yeah, give me that damn thing. I want to see what happens. But no, that wouldn't work. I don't know why, but it just he wouldn't. He never would acquiesce. They have a good sense of humor, but when they get serious, they're damn serious. And like we were talking earlier about, you get a feeling. Yeah. People dropping off or coming on, and the enthusiasm there or not. These folks, when you're around them, you feel something, and it's a presence. But I don't know how to really explain it beyond that. But when they're serious, you can tell. There's no doubt. It's like, stop talking. That's
okay.
And they don't say that. But that feeling that you get, it's like,
right.
Shut up now.
Yeah. So, or I'll turn you into a little blue ball and hit you with this bat, like a grand slam shot.
Yeah. A lot of the folks have gone with us to Peru have seen this, have seen these the blue spheres of light.
Oh, well, that's interesting. That's right.
And I, when the trips were over, the people were talking about, those people were just so strange. They were asking, about what do you think of your leader, Jerry? And using a little bit different terms.
Yeah.
And then I would just kind of smile and say, "You're talking about so these folks, in particular?" Da, da, da. So yeah, those folks. I can't really pick out where they were from. And I said, "Well, here's the deal. Here's what happened. And I wasn't allowed to tell you while we were there, but I can tell you now." And so, between being astonished and kind of, torqued at me for not telling them. But it was the arrangement I had with Rich. I promised him I wouldn't, because if they really are anthropologists and sociologists, and someone knows they're talking to an extraterrestrial, it's not going to serve the furtherment of whatever science they were.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you don't want that bad feedback again. you mess this up.
No.
When you go back there, do you still see him?
I've seen him once. Kathy met one of them, and then we were in Lima, and Kathy, because she knew this story, and Kathy says, "Jer, we were on a place called Pizza Street, which is not the official name, but that's what everyone calls it. It's in Miraflores."
Is there a lot of pizza eaten there?
A lot.
Okay, good. Is it good? Is it New York pizza? Is it delicious? Better?
No.
Oh, it sucks. Okay. I've never been there, ever.
Well, come with us sometime, and I'll introduce you to Pizza Street, and you can tell me what you think.
Oh, I don't know now.
Well, I eat the pizza there. It's not that it's horrible. It's just, it's not, what I like. But they have really good seafood.
Okay, stay away from is the other dog or what?
Well, Chinese food might actually be cat.
Yeah.
I had a hamburger in one of those out-of-the-way places and found out it was horse heart.
Oh.
So, you don't know really what you're eating sometimes.
Oh.
But to get back to this story, we were at Pizza Street.
Sorry.
And Kathy says, "Jerry, there's this guy over there just staring at you." And I said, "Well, I hope he doesn't think I'm cute or something." And
he likes my hair, honey.
and she says, "Right over there, do you know him?" So I looked. It was Rich.
Wow, on Pizza Street.
Yeah, it's just a crowd of people. On a Saturday night, it's just packed. There's, nightclubs there and, all kinds of different food. They just call it Pizza Street. Well, and it was Rich. And here it was, about dusk. It wasn't dark yet.
That's cool.
And I'm sitting there with some friends, and I go, "Oh my God, that's Rich." And as soon as our eyes locked, he just looked at me and smiled, and he waved like that. And I nodded, and he just turned and walked and then just vanished into the crowd.
Hey, I'm doing my thing. Good to see you. Okay. Later.
Yeah.
Wow.
It'd be nice to meet up with him again. I know where they live down there. I know what the situation is. It would be nice to meet up with them.
Oh, absolutely. Holy cow. Now, you do these trips how many times a year now?
We haven't done a trip in at least 8 years. This is the first time we've done it. Well, everybody wants to go to Machu Picchu, and it's too bad because what they've done to Machu Picchu is turned it into a circus. It's all about, the money grab. And I won't go back to Machu Picchu, so people want to go to Machu Picchu, they can go without me because I know what the deal is there.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go there. And I've heard, like what you said, you can only do this or you can only do that. But I also heard you have to climb up there, so you better do it while you're young. Let me ask you, what's the name of that? And I don't know where it is. I don't know if it's close by. I have no clue. There's some sort of wall, like a rock wall, and it looks like there's a door, and then it looks like there's a key. Does that ring a bell with you? I don't know where it is. I don't know if it's in Peru or not, but...
Trying to picture what you're talking about.
I think you even had a picture of it on Coast. It's like this big, giant rock wall.
It's a petrified sandstone upthrust.
And it's like a gateway or some sort of keyhole. Yeah, what do you know of that?
It's called Arabamuru, Online now, I mean, the past few years, people have been calling it some other name. I don't know why, but that's not what it's called. But it's Aramamoru. And if you look at the picture, you'll see it's a woman lying on her back, staring up at the sky. So to study the picture a little bit, and you'll see that. It really is very obvious when you know to look. Well, that is a feature that at one time Lake Titicaca was right up to it, and this area was just part of an island. It is a portal. It's a doorway that when it's activated, it can suck you into it, and you'll go someplace else. I have no idea how it's navigated. It's actually pretty scary.
Did it happen with you?
Oh yeah.
What happened? Take us back to that horrifying time, please. It's my job to ask you that.
I know. I hate talking about this because either people thoroughly believe it or people think it's thoroughly BS.
Well, they already think that if they think that now, right? They're already thinking that if
Probably
they jumped
so.
into here. So.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Well, Kathy and I were married in 98. And by November of that year, the 11th month, we were in Peru. We went to Aramamoru, which is in southern Peru near Lake Titicaca. It's not too far from the Bolivian border and the Altiplano. And I had been told by this fellow that this doorway could be opened by making a series of musical tones. So I decided I'd find out. There were a whole series of things that compelled me to do this. Well, we got there, and I thought, people were doing the 11/11 thing, so I'm thinking, okay, it's 11th, and it's the 11th of the month, and so I'll be there and do this at 11/11 at night. All these 11s lining up. So I did it. And I had to keep doing it over and over and over. Finally, I must have got something right, because it just sucked all the breath out of me, and I got pulled into the damn thing.
Physically,
Meanwhile,
or just your soul?
No, physically.
Physically, okay.
Kathy and the other folks that were there, they were all freezing. It's really cold there at night. The wind blows. I had on this big white London fog down-filled jacket. You can imagine up against something like that, it's easy to see a person. And I'm standing there, and then I'm not. And it freaked everybody out. Well, I went into it, and I ended up going somewhere. And Linda Moulton Howell has the whole story on her site, Earth Files. So I told her, she's a friend too. And I ended up in some other place. I don't know where I was. But while I was there was a voice that sounded like they were talking on an intercom. And they wanted to know about me, what was I doing, and we carried on a conversation. And I told them I needed to get back. I don't know how the hell I got here, but I don't want to stay. And they directed me to go back, how to do it. And I did. And when I got back, I ended up back at the doorway again. For Kathy, I was gone 2 minutes. For me, I was gone at least an hour or so. I was pretty freaked out.
So that's interesting. I know you had a near-death experience as well. Were they similar?
No, nothing alike at all.
No?
No, not even close. Not even close. This, I consider this doorway to be dangerous, only because if you happen to trigger it, you don't know where you're going to go. And you sure as hell don't know if you're ever going to come back again. And I've had people contact me. What are these musical notes? How do you do this? I'm not trying to be, proprietary with knowledge, because I don't think that's right. But this thing moves you through time and space. To have been gone that long and only be gone here for 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And the people on the other side said, you can choose where you want to go and when it is that you arrive there.
Oh, wow.
So imagine if this got into the wrong hands. Some whack job go and, back in time and do something wrong, or who knows what. I mean, I don't have a clue, but
that's true.
It just seems to me prudent to just say, you know what, I don't know a damn thing about it. I'm just not going to talk about it and leave it at that.
Wow, I think that would be fun. That would be exciting too. Always in the bad hands, I get that, but what about the good, responsible people? We would have a blast.
I know, and there's so many good, responsible people. So I don't know. I took a group down there. There were some guys, because I wanted to do an experiment, and they wanted to be part of it. So I took a group of guys down there several years ago. I gave them the information. We went to the doorway, and I videotaped it. I didn't videotape the doorway. It was just pitch black anyway, and I don't have a camera and night vision and all that. Couldn't afford that sort of thing. But I did have a camera and a bit of light where I could try to record the people. And I made them sign disclaimers that if they don't come back, it's not my fault.
Oh, that's serious.
Yeah, I mean, because I know the reality of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't, and they're not sure if it's real or if it's fantasy. Well, I know it's real, but they don't. So I give them all the information they need. They go to the doorway, and they do this. Every one of them had an experience. Now, if you want to see this video, it's at expeditions.tv. It's spelled with an X, not EX. And I'm going to smoke on your show now.
Okay. I was wondering when you were going to light it. Who was it that always did a show and they never lit it?
I don't remember, but I know who you're talking about.
They never lit it.
It's just like...
Yeah. Well, you keep doing that. I'm dying to have one of my lollies over here, but that would not be good. I got to talk. So that would be good. So we can see the video of that. That's excellent. Okay.
Well, it's kind of a documentary of sorts where you can see the video. Expeditions TV right now, all the videos are free to watch. There's a bunch of them up there because this is 20 years of Kathy and I investigating lost cities and ancient mysteries. Very cool. You're watching Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. I'm Connie Willis. This is Jerry Wills. I always think it's Jerry Willis when I see it. I always think there's an I in there. I'm thinking, what? And people actually thought it was too before. They were asking me if I was related to you two. This is Far Out Thursday or Signature Thursday. Tomorrow night is Bigfoot Friday with Squatchman. Then Easter we have Stan Larimer with Stan's Bible lecture, an Easter teaching, I guess, where you can also ask questions. And tonight you can do the same. While you're here, please hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. There's a couple questions on here. And we didn't really touch on this much, but I know you have a lot of stories here. Do you keep a dream diary? No. No? I don't have any dreams anymore. I'm always immersed in some kind of weird reality. Well, now, do you lucid dream? Do you astral project? Do you have out-of-body experiences? Those are all kind of different things. Do you do all of those? I do. And I was just being facetious about the dreaming. No, I do dream. It's okay. Didn't want to, make it sound like, he doesn't sleep and he hangs upside down every night when he goes to sleep. And when I snore, it sounds like a cat purring. Kathy, is that true? She'll chime in any time now. We're talking to Kathy next week, and we'll get the truth. Then you'll find out what the truth is. Well, that's what she says. If you don't know what the truth is, ask Kathy. That's right. Ask the woman. Well, she'd be good to tell you what her experience was seeing me vanish. I mean, her commentary is brief, but, she said I just shimmered, kind of like Star Trek, and then I just faded out of sight. And she, was rubbing her eyes going, what the hell happened?
She was going, I, like in the cartoons.
When I got back, she was crying her eyes out.
Because you were gone.
Yeah.
That's the love of her life, vanished before her eyes.
And I came back, and, she's 30 feet away from me when I left and when I came back. It was heartbreaking, to see her so upset.
Aww.
If I hadn't gotten back, my God, what would have happened,
Oh.
It's creepy, and I don't like, I'm not going to do that doorway thing again.
Yeah, I've never heard any stories. I just knew there was like a gate or a doorway. I've never heard any stories. We got a couple more questions here for you. Can you cure just about everything? How about neurological conditions?
Well, I don't cure anything, really. I rearrange energy and matter. And people end up getting better as a result of that. If there are neurological issues where nervous systems are chemically or surgically damaged, I can't make them come back, even though I've tried, because what's dead is dead, what's gone is gone. It really depends on what the neurological issue is, but keep in mind, folks, I don't cure anyone. And the reason I say it that way is because the word cure is owned by the medical industry. It's a protected word, and I don't use it. I do help folks, and I have helped quite a few folks with all kinds of issues. But before I work on anyone, I make it clear so they'll understand that I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I'll be able to help you, maybe I won't. And to what degree can I help you? I don't have a clue about that either. I always seem to be able to see clearly inside, to be able to, sense, if you will, what's going on and what the details are. But I don't know if I can actually fix anybody of anything. Although, now that I've said that, there are thousands and thousands of people that I've worked with that no longer have their issues. There was this one gal, talking about neurological issues, here's a couple of good ones. There was one gal in Pennsylvania that had something, I don't know what it was, but she felt like she was on fire all the time.
Oh.
And she could not walk without having heavily padded shoes, and she walked with a great deal of difficulty and trepidation because it hurts so bad.
That sounds like one of the stages of diabetes.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe so, but I don't think she had diabetes. It was some other kind of nervous thing that was happening. A lot of pain. Really nice gal. And you couldn't even touch her. It hurt excruciatingly bad. So what do? I walk up to her and go, let's see if I can fix this. And I put my hands on her, which should have sent her into screaming pain. Instead, she said all the pain just immediately left, and it was gone. And so I'm rubbing her arms, her hands, her legs, her feet. She's like, it's just gone. It just happened that fast. And I don't know how that happened.
Have you ever tested that with anything? Has anybody got any equipment around you to test what comes out? Or have you done anything like when a long time ago, they had the technology, so I know it's got to be a whole lot better now. Like, remember the Phantom Leaf when they would do that? That was so cool. Did they ever do anything like that with your hands or, try to figure out what it is or see what it might be?
Well, you're talking about Kirlian photography. And, one time that was attempted. The way Kirlian photography works is high voltage is applied to a plate. You put your hand there. There's a Polaroid picture thing underneath there, and then the shutter or whatever. It's like you hit a button, it goes, zzz, and then it develops the film, and you can see the really dandy pictures that you're familiar with, that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So they tried that with me. I put my hand in the box,
And you blew up the machine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Not quite.
Oh, no. What happened? I'm sorry.
This was a full pack of Polaroid pictures. And I exposed every one of them.
Oh.
And the guy didn't have any more. How can that happen?
Wow.
So there's multiple layers showing. I mean, if you were to take and layer it out, you'd see like above my hand the field, all the way to the bottom of my hand the field. And it was the craziest thing ever.
That's cool.
I've had a few people test what's going on, and they don't have any answers. I mean, this is something that's outside the realms of known science. I suspect, though, there's going to be a point in time when, what is known is going to expand from where it is. And it's already started, really, with, quantum entanglement and quantum physics and observer effect and all of that. The vocabulary isn't there, and the technique for making that kind of measurement is still being refined.
Yeah, because I think if we could figure it out, we could replicate it. I
think so.
Yeah, and that would be excellent. Everybody would be, so happy, not so hurt all the time. So let me get you some of the quicker questions here.
Sure.
Because I don't want to keep you too late, but I want to definitely get into some other areas before you go this time. And those areas, before we get there, will be ayahuasca and Ingo Swann. So before that, have you ever tried working with autism?
I have, and I can tell folks right now that autism is a very difficult thing to deal with, both as a healer and as a parent. If you have an autistic child, one of the things that I would like for you to investigate is research into the levels of oxytocin that the autistic child does not have. And it's been pretty well shown. I mean, I was talking about this before the research was done, but now the research is there, and it's better to refer to empirical evidence. Autistic children, they could be very, very low in oxytocin. And when they've been given oxytocin, their radical behavior changes dramatically. So, if you're dealing with that, then look into oxytocin. Women have a lot of it. Men don't have so much. Men and women are so vastly different anyway. The way they're wired, the way the chemical balances in the body are. But an autistic child seems, I think it's kind of presumptuous to say it's all of them, but you should find out, because oxytocin might be the one thing you're looking for that you don't know a thing about. So look up oxytocin, read about it, understand what it is. You need to be conversational in this to help your child, because you're going to be talking to people who probably don't know anything, and what you've read is far beyond their knowledge base. So you're going to need to have a good knowledge base to be able to talk comprehensively with anyone you're going to have trying to help you in this situation.
Have you noticed that there's a number of doctors who believe in the healing? Is that on an increase with things like what you do?
Say that again?
Do you think that doctors nowadays, are they increasingly kind of coming around to people like you, or are they shunning you away?
Depends on the doctor. Naturopaths tend to be more open. There are some doctors that I have, good friendships with, that I have worked on them and their family, and some of their patients, clandestinely pushed over to my direction. Or they'll consult and say, I've got this person, this is the problem, I can't tell you who it is, confidentiality, but what do you think? And I'll just touch the doctor and see them. And say, well, she has this and this going on. So, well, I never told you it was a woman. Well, you don't need to, I already saw who she is. So, there are some doctors, but by and large, they don't buy into this, because they are, by the book, medically trained professionals, and They don't want to dabble in this. You know, you run into this all the time. They think they know it all, but there's really a limit to what they know. And I think because of the confidence they're trying to instill, you know, they don't want to admit that they don't know everything. That's just my guess on this. But doctors, by and large, are good people to have. You know, there's a place in the world for Western medicine. You try to go to a healer like me who does crazy things to help people, and you have an appendicitis attack, you better have a doctor. Yeah,
it's true. It's true. There's definitely a mixture of it for sure. I just wish people were open to all of it, you know. Well, you are, to both sides. You just said it just then.
Yeah.
So tell me about something that I've always wanted to do. And I've told some people before that I wanted to do it, and they said, oh, you can do it in California. You can do it in California. I don't want to do it in California. I want to go where the real shaman are. I don't want to go in somebody's, you know, house on, I don't know, Wilshire Boulevard or something. I don't want to do that. I want to go out to the Amazon. So tell me about ayahuasca. Is it ayahuasca? Ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca.
Okay. So tell me about that. I've always wanted to do it. The first time I ever heard about it was actually Graham Hancock talking to Art Bell on Coast to Coast. I was a kid. I was just listening to it in the middle of the night, and I was like, what? What is that? And it just sounded incredible. But then later on, I heard about some horrible things with it where you really, really get sick first.
Well, it depends. That isn't necessarily the case. It's a good subject to talk about. Ayahuasca's main ingredient that causes it to be so powerful is a molecule that your body is producing right now. It's in the pineal gland is where it gets produced.
Oh, interesting.
And it's called dimethyltryptamine. And you have small amounts of this. Ayahuasca has larger amounts of dimethyltryptamine, otherwise known by its acronym DMT. It's also called the spirit molecule because it's figured that DMT is responsible for all aspects of awareness and cognitive thinking, where you can hear me, I can hear you, we can think, we can respond, you know, we can do all the things that we do as people to convey information. DMT is responsible for that. But we have a small amount that we're operating on, and it gets replenished at night when we're sleeping. And thus, because there is that going on, some people have very lucid dreams because DMT causes very lucid experiences. When you take a look, we're going to take a step to the side for a moment. When you take a look at your genetic material, I think there's something in the order of 250 billion miles, if laid out end to end, 250 billion miles of genetic material in your body. And all of this is self-luminous. This self-luminous aspect works in two directions. The first direction is transmitting information, and the second is receiving. So if you're psychic, what I've found is that when a person is psychic, they have a little bit more DMT than the people around them. Because your DNA is being fired off by the DMT, and is increasing the awareness factor of receiving and communicating, and this is luminous, so it's over light, over some spectrum of light. Now, when you use ayahuasca, you're drinking a beverage that historically has been created by shaman in the Amazon for thousands of years. No one really knows when it started or how it started, and honestly, given the proliferation of types of plants in the Amazon, how in the world did they come up with using this vine and this bark or leaves and boiling them together to get ayahuasca? You see, the vine has rich DMT properties. The leaves have an enzyme, and that enzyme turns off your stomach's ability to destroy ayahuasca as soon as it hits your stomach, or the DMT rather, the moment it hits your stomach. That's the only property it has. It'll turn off the ability for your stomach to destroy the DMT. So then it can pass on through and be absorbed. How in the world did they ever come up with this? And no one really knows. Well, when you drink the ayahuasca, you might drink 2 ounces or 3 ounces of it. It depends on the shaman and how strong he's made it. And you drink it, and it tastes, Kathy says it tastes pretty awful. I don't mind it, really. It doesn't bother me. She doesn't like it at all.
What's it taste like?
I don't know. It's brown, murky, smoky tasting. It doesn't taste good.
Is it muddy?
But yeah, kinda. But it's not gritty. It's just kind of it's not really even thick. It's just, it just doesn't taste very good, for most people. Almost a turpentine kind of feeling on your tongue when you're drinking it.
Wow.
That kind of a weird thing. But you drink it, and then you sit there in the jungle, which is the only place you should do ayahuasca. So I know people are doing it, California and other places around, North America. I wouldn't do it that way. Ayahuasca is a jungle plant. It's a jungle experience. But anyhow, you drink it, and then within about 45 minutes, for some people, you will either have explosive diarrhea, it will be very short-lived, or you'll be heaving. And the reason for that is because some people are controllers, and the others are those who can be controlled. And it identifies that within you.
So the controllers would be the ones that throw up?
Nope, they're holding on to it. They're going to control this situation.
So it
goes on down into your bowels. It feels like a hot snake moving through your bowels. It's not horrible, but it isn't comfortable either. And you get to the point to where it's like, if I don't get to the bathroom, there's going to be a hole in the floor when this comes out.
Do they have bathrooms, or do you have to go around the tree in a bucket behind?
No.
So it's a little civilized then.
Oh yeah, we only go to civilized places.
Oh, I didn't know if it was just, I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah. Well, there's a bathroom and a sink to wash up,
but you're able. It's not such projectile either way that you can't go to the bathroom and not be seen by other people.
Exactly.
So they're not going to know if you really throw up or do the other, unless they hear it. They'll hear it.
They'll probably hear you throwing up, because people try not to throw up, and when that happens, eventually they will.
Yeah.
And they either throw up into a little bucket-like thing near them, or they'll get up, they'll go to the banister and lean over the banister, and then they'll throw up.
Let it go.
Exactly. So it's just part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds objectionable. It really isn't that bad. It doesn't last that long. But the thing is that some shaman will put tobacco juice into the ayahuasca for the expressed purpose of making you throw up, because everyone knows you take ayahuasca, you should be throwing up. And it's creepy. Not my idea of a good time.
Yeah, they shouldn't be doing that.
No, it's not proper at all. But they do, and that's why we're very careful about the shaman that we associate with, and how we vet the shaman is by tasting their ayahuasca to find out what's in it.
Yeah, because that truly makes you sick.
See it. Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's faking the experience, That's
Yeah, and when that happens, you throw it up. You're not getting very much ayahuasca.
Right.
It's kind of a waste of time, and it's like, oh well, you weren't ready for the visions. Do it again in a couple of days. It'll cost you another $100,
Yeah.
and it'll be better next time.
Right,
Well, next time
right.
they bring you the damn ayahuasca that doesn't have the tobacco juice in it.
Oh, gosh.
So they just double dipped trying to get a person to pay them more money.
Right, that's terrible.
It is. It's just wrong.
So you get sick, and then you go back out, all wiped up everywhere, and then what?
Then you just lay back down on this foam mat with a blanket over it and a pillow. Start. You should by now anyway be seeing the most incredible geometric patterns and colors. There's no way to explain it. It's colors you've never seen. And when that gets a little old, because it does, it's like, okay, I've seen enough of this. There's got to be more to it. It'll just fade away. And when it fades away, something else fades in, and this is where your learning or your healing is going to take place. And sometimes you'll see spirit beings, you'll see spirit animals, totems, or you'll just be going through an experience where all this information just comes rushing in at you. Because see, with ayahuasca, your DNA is more sensitive now to the light coming from everything, whether it's the stars, the people around you, the plants, the moon. It's absolutely incredible, the communication that happens. And you learn a great deal. If a person is psychic, it'll blow the doors off their psychic ability. And a lot of folks are wondering, is this going to be something that lasts? Or is it just while I'm quote-unquote high? No, it lasts. You learn something from this that you'll never forget. It's that intense of an experience.
And
I've done it.
And abilities will last too?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it opens the door. If you're ready for it to be opened and you're looking for that to happen, it will happen.
Excellent.
It doesn't mean you're going to have the wisdom to use it properly.
This is true.
Or the experience to really know how to call on it when you need to. But, when you've experienced it and you know that it's there, there's no wondering any longer. Mm-hmm. Now you know it's tangible, you know it's real, and now you're looking for what does it take, just like it did for me and that doctor's office in Raleigh. What does it take to give me the empowerment so that I can control what I'm wanting to do? And ayahuasca will show you.
Do you decide the journey, or does it take you on a journey?
It's a little bit of both, but I'm not sure. I think ayahuasca exists in a spiritual realm outside of our ability to really comprehend what the hell's going on. I think that it knows what you need. And it's not overt to the point where it's like, hey, come over here, we're going to do this. It's more like a mother who is stern and puts her arm around you and walks you forward and says, don't be afraid, I'm here with you. And we're going to do this together.
So is this more like, can you compare it to someone's asking about high-octane mushrooms?
I've never done mushrooms, so I can't really compare it. I have done mushrooms who've told me that it's beyond that. It's more intense than that. But I've never done mushrooms, so I couldn't tell you.
I've always heard that it does teach you what you need to be taught. Like you're saying,
Yeah.
It knows what you need. I never knew what it did. I mean, later on I heard that from a lot of California people. They'd say, oh, you learn what you're supposed to learn. And I thought, well, I've never heard that. I heard where people saw ETs and they would talk to them, or they would see, other beings out there, and they would actually have conversations. And I thought, well, that would be cool. But then later I heard it's a real self-help kind of thing, and you feel so much better and all that kind of stuff.
Well, everyone's got their own vernacular
Sure.
to try and explain it.
Sure.
I've done it nearly 20 times. Kathy's done it much more than I have. Every time is different, but it's as though you're going into a learning experience where the next time you start where you left off and you learn a little bit more. And the next time, again, a little bit more. And what I've learned for myself, it probably doesn't apply to too many people, although I can explain the experience, but it has given me greater depth of insight into the mechanics of being alive and what it means to be alive, and the ramifications of your actions beyond anything that you ever have really thought about. I mean, one of those things that, and I don't even know how to begin talking about this, so I'm just going to butcher it, I'm sure, Connie,
Okay.
but, bear with me, and, I'll probably stumble and fall, but here's something that I learned from ayahuasca, another thing about it, there are things that percolate up into your awareness over time. So it's like when you're ready, it starts showing up, it percolates up a little bit further, and there's the next thing. You have these aha moments very frequently. Well, here's one of the things that I learned, and I hope I don't tear this up too badly. But when you think about a relationship with another person, we were talking about God earlier. What is God? I don't have a clue. When you have a relationship with another person, that is a very deep spiritual connection that you're having. And if something happens and that person does the wrong thing to alienate you, doesn't it feel as though God turned their back on you? This connection that you have with another person is of course, we all say, yeah, it's sacred. But it goes much deeper than just our eyes and our feelings. It goes right down to the very core of our existence. And when we are connected with another person this way, we feel that evidence that there is something very powerful that's at play here. But if they do something to hurt you, or just leave you, or cheat on you, or whatever, and they're suddenly not there, that hurt and that emptiness that's felt is synonymous with what it would feel like to be completely disconnected from God. And while I'm probably not putting this into terms that are as eloquent as I wish that I could, that's about as close to one understanding knowing things, developing my abilities far beyond anything that I had a clue it could go. It blows the doors off the psychic abilities for sure.
Did you get stronger in your healing?
I did.
Yeah.
Down there, of course, I'm working with people. I'm always helping somebody somewhere. And the folks that come with us on these trips, I try to help them too if they ask.
Well, yeah, if you know that there's a healer on board, hey, how are you? I got a headache.
Well,
Anything, right?
I have villages that send messengers for me to come to their village because people are sick, children are sick.
Wow.
Hospitals, people have me go to the hospitals to work on children.
Sure.
It's just what my life is. When I'm down there, I'll have a little bit of ayahuasca, and I'll just put a drop under my tongue periodically. 2 worlds the whole time. It's not like being stoned or high or, I don't know, make up a word for it. It's just that my awareness explodes, and I become super aware of everything. And because I'm super aware of everything, the energies flowing through me are not that inhibited. So instead of feeling my hands heat up, my whole body heats up. And I do like this towards a person, and they start heating up before I ever get to them. So it's a very powerful effect.
That's interesting. Could you just, instead of looking at the different things that maybe somebody's got 10 things wrong with them and they want you to address each one, could you ever just kind of throw out the energy on the entire, like you just said, at that point, can you just throw out heat all the way across them and just almost like the Jetsons where they could go into something and zzz, and be done? I mean, that makes sense, right? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it does. It makes sense.
That's cool.
And I used to do that a lot. What happens, Connie, is that when I do that sort of thing, I reserve that for life or death situations where there's maybe not death or life in particular, for very dire circumstances. For example, I was in Boulder a few weeks ago taping a show for Gaia, and Regina Meredith
I know
is
Sid
one.
Goldberg out there, by the way. Do you know
Oh,
Sid?
okay.
Tell Sid hello next time.
All right, I will. But Regina had picked up a curling iron and burnt the holy hell out of her hand.
Oh, yeah, we've all done that.
Skin was falling off her fingers.
Oh.
She was in a terrific amount of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I got there about an hour after it happened. She had done one interview with her right hand in a bucket of ice, just to try to keep it from hurting so bad, because she had to do these interviews. So I show up, it's like, can you do anything? And I know Regina, she's a real sweetheart. She's like you, actually. She's just the neatest person.
Cool.
And
thanks.
So I said, yeah, I can do something to help you, but it's going to hurt like hell, because I have to really accelerate this. I have to really jump on this. I'm not going to touch it, but you're going to feel it, and it's going to hurt for about 10 minutes. If you're okay with that, then I'll do it.
Well, she's already screaming bloody murder, right? So I would say go for it. So she did? She said go for it.
She did. And it hurt worse than it had been hurting.
Oh, okay.
That was the warning.
Right.
And then, at the end of 10 minutes, when I got finished working with it, it went from 100% bearable pain to only 10% painful. And I told her...
was the skin on there, too?
Oh, it was still looking pretty nasty.
Oh, okay.
Because it was burnt. When I said something's dead and it's gone, it's gone.
Right, okay, right.
I said, but within an hour, about an hour is how long it's going to take for everything to super manifest here and regenerate. At the end of an hour, it won't hurt anymore, and your hand will heal up remarkably fast, and you'll be fine. At the end of an hour, at the end of our interview, her hand didn't hurt. And about 2 weeks later, I heard from her, and she says, by the way, it just all dried up and flaked off, and there's no scars, there's nothing. It's just gone. It never hurt again.
Wow.
So, in answering your question about just doing a whole body zap, I probably could. The problem is that when I did this when I was younger, I didn't have any wisdom. But the wisdom involved here, a person's body needs to know how to manage the healing. And if you overwhelm the body's natural ability to heal, it might not be able to heal itself next time. So now what I do is I manage the healing through the body so that I work as a companion to the body's natural healing processes. In dire circumstances like Regina's, broke her toe, broke her big toe, and it hurt like hell, I just make it better now, because that's the only thing that can be done. And there have been people I've worked on who had cancer of this, that, or the other, and they weren't supposed to live, or they had this heart condition, and they were, not expected to live much more than a month or two. And in cases like that, all you can do is just make it different. But by and large, a lot of the folks that I work on, they don't need that. They want it, of course, who wouldn't? But it's smarter. It is wisdom to show what it's supposed to do and help it to do it, so I don't overwhelm it, because there's really nothing. It may seem at the inception, but you really have lost something there, and it's your body's ability to really organize itself and be able to do this again if it needs to.
I can see that. But then again, it could make it to where it never needs it again. I'm going to take a whole other side, too. Come on, yeah.
Well, you might have a point there, Connie.
Who knows? Well, it's been almost 3 hours. Do you want to talk a little more about Ingo, or do you want to save that for another night?
It's your call. We can talk a little bit about Ingo if you want to.
All right, give us a little Ingo, then we'll wrap it up. I don't want to take all your time to where you don't want to do it again. Oh, Connie, she's going to make me go for 3 hours. I don't want to do that.
You know something? I don't even know how much. I don't pay attention to time. That's one of the things that exists in my world.
True.
You know, time is a weird concept, just like money and politics and religion and holidays. All these things are just weird concepts to me. But I guess people need it. Well, anyway,
yes.
Ingo.
Tell us about Ingo. Ingo Swan, the father of, for those of you that aren't sure, this is Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. Myself and Jerry Wills are here. And this is, what we're talking about now is Ingo Swan. He's known as the father of remote viewing. And now I took classes with remote viewing and was taught by Lynn Buchanan, one of the military project guys, Project Stargate. And Lori Williams teaches it as well, and she's incredible. And I'm going to do advanced again in about 2 weeks with her. Wonderful, wonderful stuff to learn. Incredible people that you meet when you take these classes and courses. You know, if you're like me, where you need to learn how to do it, but then you have people like Jerry that already know how to do it, and they go to the top and get to talk to people like Ingo, because Ingo wants to talk to you, right? Ingo wants to talk to you, and he's a man that everybody wanted to talk to.
I had always wanted to talk to Ingo, kind of like yourself.
Yeah.
I've known about him for a long time.
I thought he was probably the wisest man on the planet, because if he wanted to know something, he could find the answer. That was my thought.
Yeah, that's how I felt about it too. I just wanted to be in his presence. I wanted to, because I can feel the energy. I can sense all this stuff. And it came to pass that a mutual friend that I call Dr. X, like on the X-Men. And
what's his address? Go ahead. I'm just kidding.
Very interesting fellow. But anyway, he introduced me to Ingo Swan. And a few other notables as well. And so, because he had suggested it, Ingo said, yep, tell Jerry to come by on this day at this time. And I did. And, you know, it was a little bit of a chilly beginning. You know, he was down in his basement, downstairs, where he spent most of his time. He owned this apartment building in New York, in the Bowery. And we started talking, and the more we talked, the more we had to talk about. And he, of course, because I'm a healer, that's why I was there. So Ingo says, well, are you going to heal me or not? And I said, I don't know. I guess I can try. Let's see what happens. I started powering up and doing what I do. And
did he have a stogie in his hand when he asked you?
Oh, hell yeah.
Because they said that's all constant.
Yep.
Okay.
He's like,
it's like,
yeah, it's Ingo.
No, it was Ingo.
I started working on him, and he started describing everything that I was seeing in the field. What are those things around you? What's this going on here? What is this you're doing there? And I said, you can see that? Yeah. Of course I can see it. I said, okay, well, I don't know that you can see it. So I started telling him, And after I finished working on him, he was relieved. He felt amazing and better, he said. So we became great friends. He said, I've never seen anybody like you. He says, you're one of a kind, probably the most powerful healer on the planet, and all this stuff. So I'd never been told that. Well, the next thing you know, we become great friends. And just a second, I'm looking at something here. How's my audio, Connie?
I hear you fine.
Okay, good. So,
but hold on. Yeah, I think you're fine.
Okay, thank you. Kathy just said my audio suddenly sounded muted, so I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, well, she's the one listening to it that way. I'm listening to it through Skype.
Yeah. So we became great friends, and that was a relationship that lasted for quite a few years. He met Kathy eventually, and I think he actually liked her better than me, which is fine. I've got a picture I'll send you of one afternoon I was with Ingo. Kathy wasn't in New York with me, and he wanted to know, well, where's Kathy? I said, well, you're a remote viewer. She's home. He just sort of looked at me and studied me just pensively, like that, you know. I thought it was a great joke. So he gets up, goes over to his wine rack, takes a bottle of wine, pulls 3 nice wine glasses, sits them on the table, because I would always sit on Ingo's right and Kathy would sit on his left. He sits a wine glass down where she would be, pours me wine, pours himself wine. Well, he pours Kathy wine, then pours himself wine. And so he get her on the phone. So I got her on the phone, and he talked to her for a few minutes. He says, well, we're having wine, and we really miss you here, darling. So he says, take a picture. So I took a picture of him with her wine glass, and he's toasting Kathy so I could send it to her, so she didn't feel like she was missing out.
Oh. That's just sweet. I mean, yeah. That's just sweet. I know there's many different sides of him, and I've heard good and bad. I know I got the bad side when I went to go see him. That's another story. I kind of told it a little bit on Coast.
I'm so sorry for that. You know,
he was at the end of his time. You know, he was really sick at that point, and they said he was just really grumpy, groggy, and he didn't want anybody to see him that way, right? And here I'm knocking at his door in New York with, I think I had a bottle of port and a good bottle of wine, and this great fruit and these great cheeses, and I was going to take care of him. And of course, what do I have to say when I ring the bell and he finally answers, right? And it was, I'm a friend of Lynn Buchanan's. Then he knew, oh no, it's a student. Oh no. But I got to hear him, even though he's a little ornery, very New Yorkish to me. At least I got to hear him. And you know what I'm talking about, right? The door.
Oh yeah.
There's all these
right
little
there.
buttons,
He and I on that step and smoke and watch people and just talk for hours.
That's what I heard he did. Yeah, so good for you.
Kathy was there, and sometimes I go down to the health food store, buy him some vitamins or some other supplements.
Well, I think we talked about this before, that Penetration, that incredible book. Penetration, get Penetration, folks. Get the book by Ingo Swann, Penetration. It'll blow your mind. Where some people believed it was fiction, I absolutely never even considered it being fiction. I thought every bit of it was true, and then I heard that people were having these conflicts about it, and I thought, really, why would you guys think this? This is Ingo. This is his life. This is how it is when you can do the things that he can do and the things that he did. And what an interesting thing to say, you know what, they don't want us to know telepathy. We are being dummied down so we won't know the truth. I thought, that's it. There's the answer.
Yeah.
There's the answer.
And I had read parts of Penetration. At that point, I hadn't read the whole thing. I'd gotten to the point about the people on the moon and the thing in Canada with the UFO and all that. And I said, is this a fictional piece or is this real?
You asked him.
Yeah, I said, I'm just curious. I mean, is this just a story, or is there some reality to it? He's looked at me, puffed his little stogie, and said, "Every damn bit of it's the truth." He said, "This really happened." And I said, "Well, what about such and such?" I said, "Didn't that kind of freak you out?" And he says, "Oh, hell yeah. I was scared shitless. I couldn't believe this was going on." He says, "I just wanted to get out of there. I couldn't believe they'd taken me to this place, or that this had happened." And he started going in different parts of the book I wasn't even familiar with. And the expression on his face told the story. He was telling the truth, and I could feel it from him. You know, his field, whenever he had something that he wouldn't talk about, he would just clam up and say, "I can't talk about that." I asked him about, Mars. I said, "Face on Mars, what can you tell me?" He said, "Can't talk about it."
Well, then you knew it was something. You knew it was more than just sand.
Well, yeah, and I said, "So people on Mars?" "Can't talk about that." "So how about if I tell you what I think?" He says, "If you want to, go ahead. I have all afternoon." So I told him what I thought, and I said, "So am I right or am I wrong?" And he said, "I can't talk about it." I said, "Well, how about if you just look at me if I'm right and look away if I'm wrong?" And he just leaned forward, looked at me, and he said, "You haven't said anything that I don't know about, but I can't talk about it." I said, "Why not? Why? I mean, here we are in your place." And he says, "You have no idea who I've worked for and who's probably listening." I said, "Oh, okay." But this guy pointed out how many rings there were around Jupiter. The rings around Saturn, details about that. I mean, this is decades before it was ever known that there was any rings.
That's how they got more money for the project. That's how they had to get more money. He when he proved that, that's when they gave him, more money. It made, they took, what I've been told is they spent $20 million on that project, on Project Stargate. $20 million back then was a ton of money. So, the remote viewers now that are still around, they say things like, they try to say that it never existed, the project never existed, and they're like, well, $20 million later, what does that tell you?
Sure.
It was a lot of money back then. Yeah, I tell you, it's really cool. So knowing remote viewing and knowing that everybody can remote view, you just go and get trained, and some people are very natural like you guys. There's other people that are very natural, but this hones in and gives you like a martial art, it gives you a lot of tools to really focus better. And,
yeah, it does.
Yeah, and interpret, stay away from interpretation. Just say what you see, kind of thing. But knowing that we can do that naturally. I mean, the first time I did it, I was, holy cow, I was on Easter Island before. I was back in some place back in the 1700s in Finland. All these different cool places that I was there. I felt the temperature. I saw it. It's crazy stuff. But back then doing it, what's going on now? How far is it advanced? What's happening now? I know that I was told, there's phase 1, phase 2, when you do the actual Ingo Swann's way, which was very, pen and pencil. Is it a pen? Yeah, I guess it is a pen. Pen and paper, and this is how you do it. You don't do it any other way, but this is the way to do it. Here's phase 1, here's phase 2, here's phase 3. And you start getting into these phases, and at one point I was told that the phases continued on, that he created, but he stopped telling people the phases. Now, I've heard other people say, no, it never did that, it only stopped here. But other people that talked to him one-on-one, and these other people did too, so who knows, maybe he told some people this and some people that, right? Maybe
Depends on who he's talking to.
Right, exactly.
If he didn't like them, then he'd probably tell them, something just to shut them up and get them to go away.
That's right. But I was told that these phases went way, way, way up. And they're telling, like phase 18, which I think I would know P7, we call it P7, phase 7. I think that's about as high as I got. And that's something that comes natural to you. That's the voice that you hear is called a P7, phase 7. But, they get to phases where you learn how to read documents that are in a vault under the water, wherever. You can actually read the letters. And as you know yourself, if you're dreaming, and we've all had that dream where there's a newspaper and you're going to grab it and read, or a book or something you're going to read. And right then, when you start reading, you wake up. So it was being able to get into a phase and read these top secret documents of some sort without waking up. So, that's what Ingo did. He would teach you how to do that. He would teach it himself or figure it out himself, right? And write it down and then teach it. The guy was amazing. So I wonder how far it got, because that's pretty exciting just to read something like in a vault. But what else could there be that would go that high?
Well, there's something that Bingo and I were talking about that, I was telling him about when I work on people remotely. And he says, well, is it like remote viewing? Is that what you're doing? I said, no, I project myself there, and then when I'm there, I'm working on them as though I'm really there. I can see them. I can do what I do. And he says, oh. And he, looks off, and he says, what do you call that? And I said, I call that remote presence. And he says, yeah, that's what it is, all right. He says, I said, have you ever done this? He says, many times. You just put yourself someplace else. He says, but I've never met anybody else who can do that. I said, well, I do it all the time. And he says, well, that's because you're special. I said, well, you can do it too? And he says, oh, yes. I said, well, I guess you're special too, Ingo. So we're a couple special guys. Let's have a glass of wine.
Special guys, exactly.
Wild and crazy guys.
That's right. Well, yeah, he may have had a little crush on you too, so,
Yeah, well, you never know.
You never know.
He had a crush on Kathy.
Well, you knew he was not straight, right? You knew he was gay. That was openly, okay, I guess it's pretty open. But yeah, he could have had that little crush on you too.
Good heavens.
That was it. Come into my house, Jerry. No, I wish I would have gotten to meet him in other ways for sure. So, did you get to see all his paintings and stuff?
Oh, yeah. Holy hell.
Supposedly an amazing painter. Were they things that he saw?
Yeah. I've got pictures of those paintings. Yeah, if you want to see them, I'll share them with you.
What happened with it? With all the paintings? Do you know?
I have no idea. They were absolutely the most incredible paintings. So they weren't small either. They covered walls. They were just huge and amazing. But yeah, I've got some pictures I'll send to you so you can see them.
Through all of his work, he did amazing stuff. Did he make good money doing that, or not?
I think he probably did, because he was still being offered ugly sums of money to do different kinds of remote viewing things by different people. He told me this story about this one fellow that wanted proof that he could really do it. And so, because they were going to give him some huge amount of money, and he didn't like this guy, but he did this anyway, then he's going to tell him to screw off, I don't want to deal with you. He gave him the coordinates in the ocean for something that was lying on the bottom of the ocean. That
would have been easy for Ingo.
And he says, and he wrote it all down, put it in a sealed envelope, and he put it up on his bookshelf. And he says, when you get this, come back here. Don't tell me a damn thing about it. Come back here and take that envelope and just open it and read it. So the guy did. Spent a lot of money doing it too, apparently. What it was a Volkswagen that was out in the ocean with a license plate that was a specific color and had a specific VIN number and something specific in the glove box.
Wouldn't it be enough to get the VW? But anyway, go ahead.
The guy came back and it was kind of, irate a little bit. He says, it was like a wild goose chase you sent me on. Well, Ingo said, the envelope's just right there. You can see the dust settled around it. I haven't touched it. Open it up. The guy opens it up. And the guy knew about the VW and the license plate. And they had photographed and, I guess they'd taken it out of the ocean. I don't know what it was, but every detail in there was exactly what Ingo said it would be. And the guy was, pretty blown away. And Ingo says, okay, now you have your proof, leave. Well, we want you to do such and such. No, I don't like you, leave. And, I don't know if he was well off or if he wasn't. I don't know what he was, but I do know that he was the most remarkably talented fellow the world has seen. I've met two people like that, and these people are spooky capable.
Isn't that something? Did you tell him about the Pleiadians? I cannot even say it right.
Pleiadians?
Yeah, don't do too many lollies. All of a sudden you get like that persimmons pucker thing going on. I can't talk anymore. Yeah, did you tell him about that, like Rich? Did you tell him about Rich and the blue light? What did he say about that?
He just nodded and said, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, Rich and I hang out on Saturday nights.
Yeah.
Did you tell him about the visitors that you had as a child here
in
Kentucky? If you were back in Kentucky, could you go right where all that occurred?
Oh,
Do you
sure.
remember?
I've looked it up on Google Earth. I know right where it was at.
Is there still woods there?
Yeah.
So when are you and Kathy coming down so we can go check that out?
I have no idea. The way the schedule is right now, it'd probably be quite a while.
Did you ever know who Pat Price was? One of the other viewers?
That's a familiar name, but I can't say that I do much more than recognize his name.
We've got someone asking about that. I know, Bruce, that you've asked a couple times. I know the name as well, but I think the better people to ask that would be next time I have Lynn Buchanan on, or probably Lynn would know. I have him on often. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that would be fun to like Lynn Buchanan is one of the remote viewers. He and Ingo liked each other a lot, and it'd be fun to have all three of us on and you could talk to Lynn a little bit. Lynn will be interested in your stuff. He was the guy that was known for the influence. He was the guy known to be really good at influencing and getting inside of people's heads and doing whatever you guys can do. It sounds almost like the other stuff you do is called what we call bilocating, where you just show up, the remote presence.
Yeah.
Which is an awesome name. That's a great name for it. That's perfect.
Yeah. Kathy tells me I need to trademark that before somebody takes it. And she's probably right.
Well, she's probably right, but it's only going to be the people that can do it, and there's not that many people that can do it. So you don't have to really worry about it. Well, hey, thanks for coming by. We can do this again and talk some more. I know you have a bazillion stories. Is that cool to do? Would you like to do that some more?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that you're here. Is there anything else you want to say before you go?
Gosh, I can't think of anything.
You said enough, huh?
You're with us. We're leaving April 14th for a week to go to the Amazon to meet up with our shaman friend, and ayahuasca will be involved. If you're interested, you can go to jerrywills.com and look under the tab called Pru Trip Info. All trip are there. That's neat. He also has classes, and they are inexpensive. They are. I've taken the first one, and you want to learn a little bit more, the energy kind of thing there. Before I've taken, before I go into the next one. I can't wait to go on the next one, but I know I want to work on that a little bit. That might be fun to do a show on, talking about that kind of stuff. That'd be fun. Sure. That'd be cool. Yeah, the classes are meant to be experiential so that you're not just imagining something's happening, but you're actually having a tangible result to what you're trying to attempt to do. What you'll find in the second class is that you'll learn how to see energy. And it's easy to do. It really is. It's like anything, you just have to practice it so you get good at it.
But you think I can. It's not, it's like remote viewing. Everybody can. You just got to be taught it. So you're saying the same thing with energy. Because I've never seen that. I've never seen it.
Well, there's some people that just never do. But by and large, most everybody does. And, you know, I have a feeling that you'd have no trouble with this. It's kind of like, you know, when you've probably seen these things. It's like some abstract black and white thing, little picture. And if you just look at it, you're like, what the hell is that? But then when someone says, that's a cow, and you go,
oh, I see it.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about.
It's like suddenly you can't not see it.
Right. Oh, okay. Good.
Well, that's how it is with seeing energy, and that's what I put into that second class. The third class is taking it a step farther. Once you get good at the second class, it means you're already good at the first one. Mm-hmm. The third class is where you're actually projecting energy and making something move.
So you can do that. You can make something move. Obviously, you do that in the body, right? When you're healing, you're moving stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, can
Sure.
you move a pencil on the table?
I have, you know.
It's freaky.
You can, too. It's knowledge, Connie. It's knowledge. And when you have the knowledge, then you become more and more empowered.
Yeah, well, I would love to be able to do that.
Well, you
I
can.
want to move some stuff. That'd be fun. I've never seen anybody do it. Never seen anybody do it.
Well, you'll see it when you watch Class 3.
Okay, excellent. Have you ever been able to levitate?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh.
You know, every time I try to levitate, it doesn't last very long. I fall hard.
Hey, Kathy, does he levitate in the middle of the night? Ah! Well, let's do that in the future. We'll talk more about your classes and maybe teaching us a little bit along the way. That would be fun. And some other stories that you have. That would be awesome. So thank you. Thanks for coming up. Thanks.
It's a privilege to be invited, Connie. Thank you.
No, thank you. So hang in there. Okay. And wait a minute. You know the blue rocker. Can you do the?
Yep. Blue rocker.
All right. All right. He's got it. All right.
Rock on, blue rockers.
That's right. Rock on. And that was Jerry Wills here on Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. Thanks those of you that hung in there and you got through those audio problems at the beginning too. That was awesome that you guys stuck around. I knew you would, and I appreciate that you did. So tomorrow night is Bigfoot Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern. Squatch Man is going to be on. He's had this really cool offer thrown at him. It's a dream come true. However, he wants to ask you about it. So be there tomorrow night. I think you're going to be interested in that, and I think you might have something to say about it, good or bad. So that'll be fun tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern. And then Easter is Sunday. So Stan Larimer will have the Stan's Bible Lecture, 1 p.m. Eastern. It's live, and you can ask questions too. All right, so hope that you'll support him as well as Bigfoot Friday tomorrow night, and as well as Blue Rock Talk at any time. Please hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. I want to thank all of you who has showed up in the live chat. Deborah Jane East, thank you as well for all the people you've introduced me to. And Bruce Ross Morgan, thank you. Brian Tucker. Hey, Will Champion's in there. What's going on? Will's in the house. So thank all of you that showed up. Solid Silver Sounds. I need to just go through at one point and say hi to everybody. But thanks for showing up. Absolutely appreciate it. How do you like this over here? You like this little UFO? And you see the little guy here? You like that? Well, you guys, thanks again for coming. And remember, Blue Rock Talk is Earth's most interesting conversations, people, places, and things. And I'll be back on Coast to Coast April 14th, I believe it is. Yep, Saturday. And I'm actually going to be in Salt Lake City. So I get to do it out of there. That's going to be exciting. I love that. I've never been there before, and I'm looking forward to that. So you guys have a great night, and hang in there. Join me again here on Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis.